Chapter 1913. The Xiang house was glowing with a faint light as it welcomed the crowd. Su-yi stood at the head of the group, and one could tell from his aura that the Xiang house had improved. I haven't paid attention to him for a while. Could he be hiding his strength? Su-yi looked from afar. Xiang house's aura had increased rapidly in the past few days. In the 10J building, the energy flow and speed on the 4th floor were incomparable to the 5th floor. In the windless environment, Su-yi could feel the monstrous aura coming from Xiang house. Similarly, Su-yi couldn't feel any hostility or killing intent from Xiang house. Su-yi, you guys go to the 3rd floor. Leave Xiang house to me. Jun Haoyan said softly. His gaze fell on the heavenly wind jade wall behind Xiang house. It was emitting divine light and had the names of Long Tsang, Dugu Yuma, Yuchi Changfeng, and Tyrant Si Sintong written on it. Xiang house firmly occupied the 4th floor. There was a slight fluctuation in his eyes as his thin lips parted slightly. I won't help them guard, but if you want me to leave the 4th floor, you have to see if you have the strength to do so. Su-yi muttered to himself and said softly to Jun Haoyan behind him, back when he was at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm, he and I were evenly matched. Now that he is at the 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm, his true strength is unfathomable. Are you sure you can do it? Jun Haoyan's eyes shrunk. He took a deep breath and said softly, I know that the palace lord has entrusted you with the task. You have to go to the 1st floor, with Brother Shuchen and Lady Lan. The rest of the journey should be smoother. Leave this to me. Jun Haoyan turned around and looked at Lan Xiaoyan, who was wearing a light purple coat and a light muslin coat. Her graceful figure was fully outlined. Her waist-length hair was slanted under her soft waist, which made one's imagination run wild. Jun Haoyan's eyes flickered as he smiled awkwardly. He then punched Su-yi lightly and said, Trust me, Su-yi, go and do what you want to do. Juqian Palace will definitely shine because of you in the future. His name resounds through the heavens. As soon as he finished speaking, Lan Rulian's delicate body trembled for no reason. The way she looked at Jun Haoyan also changed slightly. Jun Haoyan, who had similarly reached the 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm, naturally had the strength to challenge the Xiang house. However, he was doing all of this for Su-yi and Dry Palace. His breadth of mind and boldness stemmed from his admiration for Su-yi. He couldn't help but step forward and stare at Jun Haoyan. Su-yi, you must have absolute trust in the people you trust. Then his voice paused slightly, and he said softly, You can come to my Sky Sea City with Su-yi later. I'll take you to see the wonders of the sea. Su-yi looked at the two of them. His eyes instantly showed that he understood what they were thinking. He said in a deep voice, Xiang house, don't go too far. If Jun Haoyan was harmed in any way, you didn't just flatten the sacred mountain. I'll slaughter you. The corner of Xiang house's mouth twitched. He wasn't angry at all. Instead, he looked forward to Su-yi's arrival as he spoke softly. I'll be waiting. After speaking, Xiang house stepped aside and extended his slender arm. Su-yi, Su-chun, and Lan Rulian quickly walked in front of the heavenly wind jade annulus. Next, it will be a tough battle. Long Song isn't that easy to deal with. Su-chun exclaimed softly. Rumble. Soon, the Xiang house and Jun Haoyan began their battle. Origin chi shock waves swept through the void and flattened the forest. A green storm soared high into the sky. The surrounding air shattered inch by inch. Green grass rippled in the ripples. It was like a water dragon worshipping the heavens. Su-yi lifted his eyelids slightly. At this moment, his heart had calmed down. A chilling intent flashed in his deep eyes. At the same time, he smiled and disappeared into the radiance of the heavenly wind jade annulus. Su-chan followed closely behind and noticed that Lan Rulian was paying attention to the battle between Jun Haoyan and the Xiang house. She didn't reveal any expression. Interesting. After half a day, Su-yi and the others discovered that the higher they went, the higher the density and speed of the heaven and earth origin chi. The entire area was frighteningly large. Others might not know, But Su Yi's first thought was that the third floor was becoming more and more like his mysterious space. Could the mysterious space be related to the 10 Jade Pavilion? Their scalps gradually turned numb. The three of them flew close to the ground, searching for traces of the heavenly wind ranking tournament in the vast forest. This is a wood attribute scene. It should have unexpected benefits for wood attribute cultivators. Su Chun said. Su Chun cultivated the thunder attribute origin chi of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and thunder. A thunder attribute cultivator's attack power had always been tyrannical and destructive. When cultivating, the conditions were even harsher. In the 10 Jade Pavilion, there were only metal, wood, water, fire, and earth attributes. There were no additional benefits for thunder attribute cultivators. Yuchi Changfeng also cultivates wood attribute origin chi. I wonder who's occupying this floor. Su Yi tapped his chin lightly. The fire wings behind him spun as fast as lightning. Finally, he found traces of a figure in a remote place. The three of them stopped at the same time. At this moment, Yuchi Changfeng escaped from the heavenly wind jade wall in a sorry state. His golden robe was torn to shreds by the sword chi. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. Yuchi Changfeng, who was cultivating peacefully beside the heavenly wind jade wall on the third floor, didn't even raise his eyebrows. Do you have to try? Yuchi Changfeng sat on the ground. Mysterious hand seals began to condense on his hands. He quickly recovered from his injuries as he spoke coldly. If that girl wasn't from an aristocratic family, wouldn't it be better for us to attack together and share the second floor? At this moment, Tyrant Si Santong had already opened his eyes. There was a sudden chill in his eyes as he spoke in a low voice. We sought refuge with Long Tsong. Even Long Tsong didn't allow us to fight Dugi Yuma openly. You have to be rebuffed. Who can you blame? Turning his head, Yuchi Changfeng's face was filled with unwillingness and resentment. He said sternly, but Long Tsong asked us to block Su Yi here. Su Yi hasn't shown up until now. I'm afraid he doesn't dare to come. Bang, bang, bang. As soon as he finished speaking, their pupils shrank at the same time. The three primordial chi ribbons that filled their eyes directly pounced down like hungry tigers pouncing on their prey. Who is it? In a panic, they retracted their aura and lightly tapped their feet on the ground to dodge in a sorry state. Tyrant Si Santong and Yuchi Changfeng's expression instantly turned solemn as they looked at the newcomers. It was actually Su Yi, Su Chun, and Lan Yelyan. Tyrant Si Santong put on a fake smile. He put away his previous domineering aura and said with slight anger, I didn't expect that, Su Yi. You are really powerful. The Thunderfire Temple and Sky Sea City are your vassals. The corners of Su Yi's mouth rose slightly. He looked at Yuchi Changfeng's miserable state with interest and didn't care about Tyrant Si Santong's words at all. Gulp. Saliva rolled rapidly in his throat. Yuchi Changfeng's breathing clearly began to quicken. He deliberately avoided his gaze and smiled embarrassedly. Su Yi, enemies are really bound to meet on a narrow road. Chapter 1914. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Lan Balian's eyes were filled with disdain and disdain. It was an insult to use the term enemies in front of Su Yi and Tyrannical Sea Trio. The oppressive atmosphere was like a spring that could snap at any moment. Tyrannical Sea Trio's face twitched as his anger surged. It's not that I don't want revenge. It's just that it's not the time yet. The three of you had fun chasing me in the illusory demon cave. I have already crippled Shangwan Xinhua. I don't mind crippling the two of you as well. Tilting his head, Su Yi's lips curved faintly, filled with evil arrogance. The chilliness was like a sword that instantly pierced Tyrannical Sea Trio and Yuchi Changfeng's hearts. Su, you must have heard everything that the two of them said. We have already followed Long Tsong. If you hurt us, you will be going against the Long family. Hearing these words, Su Chun shook his head. He scratched his ear and said, Smelly bugs always talk so much nonsense. Su Yi, Junhao can help you, so I'll help you too. Stomp, stomp. Their eyes twitched rapidly as Tyrannical Sea Trio and Yuchi Changfeng took 2 steps back. What happened next shocked them even more. Lon Balian covered her mouth and smiled faintly. There are 2 of them. Let's have 2 of us too. Quickly go to the 2nd floor. You promised me. I want to go to the 1st floor. Tyrannical Sea Trio and Yuchi Changfeng's eyes quickly turned gloomy. Their chances of winning against 2 aristocratic families' descendants were not high. Don't even think about leaving today. Tyrant Si Sintong gave a loud shout. 2 pillars of yuan qi in his hand spun in the air, breaking through the wind with a whooshing sound. Rumble, passing through the void. The vast shock wave shattered the space and turned into countless tentacles in the air. In the wood-attributed environment, Tyrannical Sea Trio's elemental attack was even more terrifying. The 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm erupted instantly. Seeing this, Yuchi Changfeng didn't fall behind. Golden light illuminated the sky behind him as huge golden balls were formed in his hands and smashed towards the 3 of them. The 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm had a frightening aura. The huge wooden dragon head in the sky had a golden ball above it. The green dragon scales were slowly growing, producing circles of mystical light. Bang! In less than half a breath's time, the huge wooden dragon's body was already in front of the 3 of them. In an instant, fiery shadows, lightning afterimages, and clear images of water waves appeared at the same time. Then, with a shocking momentum, he shouted at Su Chun and Lan Xiaolian, who were flying to the left and right. You're courting death. Without any hesitation, the lightning spear in Su Chen's hand flew out. Dense and profound lightning wrapped around the spear as it slashed towards the wooden dragon embedded in the ground. All of a sudden, a huge wave shot out from the ground like a landmine, and a cold aura poured down, instantly crushing a large area of space in front of him. Qila, standing proudly at the head of the tide, Lan Linglian's aura instantly changed. Her delicate face was filled with killing intent as she waved her hands rapidly in front of her. Instantly, a terrifying wave of energy swept out, and a tornado-like turquoise sea smashed towards the wooden dragon. Surges of heaven and earth energy burst forth, and the wooden dragon quickly disintegrated, exploding in the air like a deep-sea bomb. Truly overestimating yourself. Su Chun sneered and stood on a tall branch. His eyes surged with lightning radiance as he stood behind his long robe. Right now, Su Yi, who was at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm, had improved by leaps and bounds compared to the Saint Martial Assembly. When he teamed up with Lan Linglian, the entire 100-mile radius was instantly turned into ruins. The vegetation was charred black, and sparks were splashing in all directions. Lightning was revolving in the sky, and the terrifying thunder roared back and forth in the clouds. On the other side, the waves were surging like deep-sea demonic beasts that had been hibernating for 1,000 years. Countless waves splashed up snow-white waves, which was a ghastly sight. Steam pervaded the air, and more than half of the forest was submerged by the seawater. The rapidly retreating, dominating Sea Trio and Yuchi Changfeng had shock in their eyes as they looked at Su Chun and Lan Linglian with disbelief. One was at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm, while the other was at the 5th level of the Origin Emperor realm, but their martial skills weren't any weaker than the 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm. The hair on their backs stood up, and a bone-piercing chill surged into their hearts. Their mouths were wide open, and dominating Sea Trio was incomparably fearful. Is this the power of an aristocratic family? These martial skills are both high-tier Emperor-grade martial skills. Yuchi Changfeng breathed out heavily and clenched his fists tightly. The surrounding golden light surged rapidly, but it couldn't stop the shock in his heart. So, you go first. We can deal with these 2 smelly bugs. Su Chun chuckled softly. He suddenly raised his head and saw Su Yi stepping on the heavenly wind jade annulus with a relaxed expression as if he was watching a good show. Yuchi Changfeng sneered and said, Su Yi, don't think that you can get past Duga Yuma just because you can get past us. Moreover, Long Tsong is an existence that you absolutely can't surpass. An ant can only see an ant's sky forever. How can I know the thoughts of a Koan Pong? Su sighed softly. He exchanged glances with Su Chun from afar, and subsequently, his entire body surged with killing intent. Yuchi Chongfeng, if you don't die, I will definitely ascend the sacred mountain to kill you. Blood-red, killing intent surged out from his pores, and the blood chi that was visible to the naked eye made Yuchi Chongfeng tremble. The conflict between him and Su Yi was already deeply rooted. Dragons had reverse scales, and those who touched them would die. Chi-la, Yuchi Chongfeng, who was still in a daze, watched as Su Yi was enveloped by the light and disappeared above the void. Behind him, Su Chun and Lan Yelian were watching covetously. Dominators Si, Santong, and Yuchi Chongfeng were also prepared to fight to the death. Aristocratic families are strong, but it's not difficult to escape unscathed. Dominator Si Santong's eyes flashed coldly as he spoke in a low voice. Yuchi Chongfeng nodded without blinking. His eyes were cold as he secretly activated his Saint Monarch Chi to form a protective layer of Chi in front of him. He had heard that Su Chan and Su Yi had become sworn brothers in the Sacred Martial Assembly, so Su Chan would definitely do his best to kill him for Su Yi. If he didn't do his best, not only would he die, but it would also be difficult to explain to Long Song. The entire Sacred Mountain would be punished by the Long family. So what if you are an aristocratic family? Our Sacred Mountain has been around for nearly 10,000 years, and we are the first faction after the aristocratic families. You two brats, do you think I'm afraid of you? Bang, bang. On the opposite side, Suchin laughed heartily. In mid-air, his tall figure was enveloped by silver-white electric radiance as he floated in the air. He held the silver electric spear tightly in his hand, and his entire body was covered by the murderous silver-white electric radiance. The formless energy of heaven and earth was still gathering. This brat's cultivation is still rising. Look over there. Extreme fear flashed across his face. On the other side, Lan Yelian's eyes were tightly shut as the aura of a high-level sovereign gradually spread out from her body. How can a bunch of mediocre people like you compare to an aristocratic family? With a cold voice, Su Chun was also like a thunder god descending. Mystical light surged around his body, and he was extremely domineering. 7th level of the Origin Emperor Realm. 7th level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Su Chun and Lan Yelian opened their eyes at the same time. Their aura was inexplicably terrifying, and they were like kings looking down on the world as they looked at Dominators Si Santong and Lan Yelian. Chapter 1915. The sudden increase in strength caused Tyrant Si Santong and Yuchi Chongfeng's hearts to tremble. The origin chi radiance from their hands also started to flicker. Their eyes were filled with shock. Rumble! Su Chun and Lan Yelian exchanged a glance. The aura around them had reached a terrifying level. Endless lightning and shocking waves. So she is also at the 7th level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Su Chen's mouth twitched. Before he came, Yimyiqian gave him a treasure that could lower his cultivation. He said that he had to hide some of his strength and only reveal it when necessary. He didn't expect Lan Yelian to hide her strength as well. She even hid 2 levels of cultivation. What Su Chen didn't know was that Lan Yelian was also very surprised. During the Tianfeng battle, she was still competing with Yimyiqian. She originally thought that with her cultivation at the 7th level of the Origin Emperor Realm, the people sent by the Thunderfire Temple wouldn't be able to defeat her. Su Chen's cultivation had skyrocketed, instantly causing ripples to appear in Lan Balian's heart. Around her body, waves formed mysterious arcs that continuously streaked past. Lan Balian said coldly, "I have spoken to Temple Master Yen. There will be a victor between you and me." During the competition that day, Su Chan was standing behind her and was naturally unconvinced. The two of them were about the same age, and it was only because of Su Yi that they were able to cooperate temporarily. However, the competition between the Thunderfire Temple and Sky Sea City was a completely different matter. "All right, After we eliminate these 2 bugs, we will decide who will take the first floor." As soon as he said that, the lightning radiance around Su Chun suddenly trembled. A tyrannical aura that could destroy living things instantly surged out from his body. Bang! Tyrant Si, Santong, and Yuchi Chongfeng shouted at the same time and attacked together. Their eyes were filled with fluctuations, and their ferocious aura didn't give in at all. Yuchi Chongfeng's eyes were filled with killing intent. He nodded at the same time as Tyrant Si, Santong. The panic and bewilderment from before quickly disappeared and was replaced by calmness and baleful aura. Originally, we should avoid provoking the aristocratic families. However, these 2 brats are riding on our heads. Do they really think that our Sky Dragon sect is a pushover? The Sky Dragon sect and the Holy Mountain were martial arts forces that rose after the aristocratic families a long time ago. They had been entrenched in the continent for nearly 10,000 years and had a deep foundation. The fear of the previous generation of the top powers towards the aristocratic families had always been passed down in the hearts of the younger generation. However, no matter how strong the younger generation of the aristocratic families were, Tyrant Si Santas and Yuchi Chongfeng, as the #1 youth of the top powers, were not overly worried. Cut the crap. If you don't have Dugi Yuma's strength, then cut the crap in front of me. Die. Yuchi Chongfeng didn't waste any more time. A golden longsword appeared in his hand quickly. The dazzling sword light filled the entire void and quickly separated the terrifyingly concentrated thunderclouds between heaven and earth. The sword curtains slowly opened, and a vast and desolate aura swept through the air. Yuchi Chongfeng's eyes were like an eagle's as he turned into a speck of light in the air and directly charged in front of Su Chun. "Come at me." Void dust roared. It was as if he was possessed by the thunder god, his body erupting with brilliant light. All the muscles on his body crackled with thunder, and arcs of lightning shot out from his body like spirit snakes. Very quickly, the 2 of them engaged in a fierce battle in the air. At the same time, Lan Xiaoyan's beautiful brows twitched as she looked at Tyrant Si Santas. Terrifying water attribute Yuan Qi poured out from her body, dyeing the space in front of her into the color of a vast ocean. The wind and clouds stirred, and the white clouds in the sky were also contrasted with a boundless blue color. Under such an imposing aura, Tyrant Si Santa's heart began to sway. Rumble! A soft roar flashed past, and an extremely cold seawater surged up. From the endless waves, 3 towering wooden dragons appeared, and in that instant, the space around them began to tremble endlessly. Rumble! In a short instant, 4 incomparably terrifying Yuan Qi and Yuan Qi spread through the air, and an overwhelming aura covered the entire space. Suddenly, the wind and clouds surged, and the heavens and earth changed color. Above the dark void, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The power of nature was incomparably vast. After passing through the heavenly wind, Jade, Annulus once again, Su Yi arrived at the 2nd level. Just as he had expected, the entire world was covered in a dazzling golden light. Floating above the golden soil, Su Yi could even see his own blurry figure. At the same time, the boundless energy of heaven and earth also contained an incomparably terrifying soul force. Inexplicably, it pressed down on Su Yi's mind. The energy here is completely different from the energy in front. Su Yi's eyes were sharp, and his hands quickly formed seals. The art of controlling the heavens and the heavenly origin ancient scripture began to circulate like the wind. The environment around him was almost the same, and he felt a boundless desolation and loneliness. As his mind gradually recovered, he also felt an inexplicable sense of loneliness. If he stayed in this place for 9 months, even if his cultivation had increased greatly, his soul would still be severely injured. This was like a martial artist staring into the abyss, trying to pry into the secrets within. What he did not know was that the abyss was also staring at him. The origin of this 10 Jade Pavilion is definitely not ordinary. To be able to have such a powerful ability, it is definitely not created by ordinary people. At this time, Su-yi carefully observed the dazzling golden world. Instantly, a dazzling light spread out from his body, and instantly, with him as the center, directly separated into three figures. Chi-Chi. There was not much time left. Naturally, Su-yi would not be alone in such a familiar environment to search for traces of Dugayuma. The three of you go in different directions. Lightly tapping his chin, the three identical Su-yi nodded and began a carpet search. In such a place where heaven and earth were golden, even if he had found it, his patience and eyesight would have been worn out. Fortunately, his soul force had been tempered, and it was enough to support his doppelgangers to search for Dugayuma. Sitting on the ground, Su-yi formed a hand seal, and a vast soul force spread out in all directions. He concentrated on searching in one direction. The iron soulfish in the entrance yawned lazily and laughed to himself. If the white flood dragon god knew that you used her talent to find a woman, she would probably be so angry that she would come back to life. Time passed slowly, and the three figures stepped into the air and left. The majestic soul force spread rapidly in the golden space, and a terrifying fluctuation descended upon this golden world. Returning to Su-yi's body, a light shot out from between his eyebrows, and Su-yi smiled faintly. So there she is. Stopping his search, Su-yi quickly locked on to the southwest direction. Looking at the golden world, Su-yi's fiery wings spun again, and he stepped into the void and rushed forward for thousands of miles. After half a day, Su-yi finally saw the huge, heavenly wind jade annulus from afar. The familiar silver-haired woman was sitting under the jade annulus, and a mysterious light shrouded her body. Her curvaceous body was moving up and down, giving off a different kind of beauty. Her eyes were still closed, and her thin and long eyelashes looked extra mysterious in the golden light. Su-yi could not help but laugh in his heart. This dazzling golden light is almost blinding me. I might as well be like her. I won't feel uncomfortable if I close my eyes. Chapter 1916. Swish. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. An inexplicably horrifying sword chi was revealed, and a vast and sharp sword chi attack resounded across heaven and earth. Tiskla. The sharp sound of the sword chi piercing through heaven and earth produced an ear-piercing sound wave. Instantly, the surrounding space crumbled inch by inch and turned into ripples that spread to the horizon. F*CK. Attacking as soon as she arrives. Su exclaimed in his heart. He responded and quickly deployed the demon god battle armor. In short distance, Su-yi still chose to use the cloud shadow frost steps. A series of icy blue afterimages brushed past the sword chi. The horrifying energy swept across the sky. The terrifying metal attribute energy swept across and instantly shattered the space. The energy storm immediately swept out like a hurricane, so she is a metal attribute martial artist. Without time to think, Su-yi's energy burst out from his body. In an extremely short period of time, the ice crystals under Su-yi's feet condensed. He drew out the stellarum shock in his hand, and the murderous aura swept across heaven and earth. In a split second, Dugayuma, who had already stood up, heard the sound. Her ears moved slightly, and her beautiful head moved slightly. Her thin robe fluttered, and her aura rapidly intensified. It was extremely domineering, and there was a burst of bloodlust in her arrogance. The silver longsword in her hand clashed with the stellarum shock directly. Clang! The horrifying strike shook the entire golden heaven and earth violently. The horrifying energy storm immediately swept over like a hurricane. It was indescribable. After the saber light and the sword aura clashed, the remaining energy landed on the golden ground and instantly cracked it. Under the sweeping aura, a 10,000-meter-long ravine was revealed. The figures separated rapidly. The demon god battle armor on Su Yi's body was overflowing with radiance and vibrant colors. However, only Su Yi knew that the power contained in the sword had penetrated the battle armor and attacked his body. If he took off the battle armor, Su Yi would definitely be surprised. There was a deep wound on his chest that was dripping with blood. Such a woman was simply indescribable with the word horrifying. Su Yi remembered that in the 8 reverends list given by Lan Belian, there was a paragraph, Dugu family, Dugu Yuma, 20 years old, 7th level of origin emperor realm. One-finger sword god, Dugu Xie's last disciple. His swordsmanship was divine, and his sword intent was supreme. He is extremely proficient in the earth and wood attributes. Sword intent was something that a martial artist yearned for in their dreams, something that they yearned for but could not obtain. Even for someone like Su Yi, who had a heaven-defying perception, when he obtained the general outline of the heavenly windsword intent, he still did not know what it meant and was preparing to find a place to study it. She was such a miraculous girl. Not only was her sword intent high, but she was also a triple attribute martial artist. If such a talent was brought to the sacred mountain, he would definitely be dismissed as worthless by people like Wang Chuanda. But under Dugu Xie's guidance, he could become such a heaven-defying existence. The soil that had been scorched by the sword light began to melt slowly. The temperature continued to rise, and the spatial ripples in the void became like a tide. Su Yi stood in the air. The rising heat from below battered Su Yi's body. His fire attribute, Yuan Qi, could actually feel a trace of coolness. His green robes fluttered in the wind as he absorbed my heavenly star, startling soul. His boundless, baleful aura was astonishing. On the opposite side, Dugu Yuma strolled leisurely as if she was singing in the clouds and dancing in the water. It was as if she was born to live in such a purgatory. The killing intent spread rapidly. Suddenly, Su Yi frowned. Could it be that such a girl's heart was like purgatory to be able to do something so effortlessly? As I said, I will send you home in the 3rd round. Su Yi said coldly. Dugu Yuma's figure gradually rose into the air. The floating spatial ripples converged into the shape of a gentle sword under her feet. She stepped on the sword and faced the wind. In the golden world, Dugu Yuma's aura of the 7th level of the Origin Emperor realm was like the ruler of the world. From the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm to the 7th level of the Origin Emperor realm. How strong have you become? Dugu Yuma's mind was peaking. Her elegant temperament was rippling like water, and there was still a trace of beauty in her coldness. You know Muyang? Su Yi did not answer her question. Instead, he raised a question about Muyang. Looking at this girl with a white waist and a red mouth, he felt that she had her own desolation. She had never opened her eyes. Was it because she had seen all the filth in the world, or was she unwilling to put the filth in her heart? Dugu Yuma nodded and waved his long sword in the air. Gradually, a huge sword shadow took shape behind him. Dugu Yuma said, Mu Yang is the only person I can trust in the Myriad Sword Alliance other than my master. Su Yi nodded. It seemed that the Myriad Sword Alliance was also a tiger's den. Even though there were many experts, Mu Yang was still willing to go out. This also proved that Dugu Yuma and Situ Muyang both had a pure, warm land in their hearts. On the contrary, people like them could pursue martial arts to the extreme without any distracting thoughts in their hearts. You don't have to give in to me because of Muyang. I won't go easy on you, Dugu Yuma said coldly. She closed her eyes and looked at Su Yi with cold eyes. This kind of woman who wholeheartedly controls her sword, her temperament, and soul have already reached a terrifying level. There's no one in the entire Commandant Palace who can compare to her. Su Yi thought to himself. He was sure that if Dugu Yuma became a soul controller, she could also reach the peak in a short time. He took a deep breath and activated the Origin Supreme technique to the extreme. Obviously, Dugu Yuma was a terrifying existence. Before he found Long Tsang, Dugu Yuma was a hurdle that he had to overcome. He gently moved his wrist, and the fire attribute spiritual Qi shrouded the space. Along with the killing intent, the spatial dragon was already in the space. It had been a long time since Su Yi met an opponent that he wanted to defeat, especially a female martial artist. Bang! At the same time, the two of them approached each other rapidly. The giant sword shadow behind them was surrounded by mysterious runes. It was like a monstrous beast was reaching out its giant claw to tear everything apart. Looking from afar, all living beings felt a sense of insignificance. The sword shadow split the heaven and earth. Su Yi's eyes were filled with horror. He turned into four figures and appeared beside Dugayuma at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. The giant sword light did not fall, and all three of Su Yi's soul avatars were cut into nothingness. However, there was no trace of killing intent on Dugayuma's face. It was as if killing was the easiest thing in the world for her. Kaka. Su Yi's body quickly retreated in one direction. The sharp golden sword light hit hard on the hard golden ground. The heaven and earth trembled as if there was an earthquake. Bang! In an instant, the ground formed a more violent gully than before. It was as shocking as the courtyard. In the first two rounds, Su Yi was at a disadvantage. He could not help but be vigilant. Chapter 1917. Is that all you've got? Dugayuma stood proudly in the air with his eyes closed, looking cold and indifferent. Between heaven and earth, there was an oppressive aura, and a sense of loneliness emanated from Dugayuma. Looking at the thin figure in the sky, Su Yi did not feel the fear of strength, but the loneliness of life. It was a kind of loneliness and despair that came from the bottom of his heart. This guy is the same as Xiang House. They are both heavenly loners. Then, the corner of Su Yi's mouth twitched slightly. His right arm that was holding the starry soul turned back, and a crackling sound erupted. In an instant, the Origin Supreme technique was pushed to the extreme again. Boom! The visible explosion shocked Dugayuma quite a bit. Su Yi, who was far away, seemed to have changed into another person. His temperament changed drastically. Just by listening, he could feel the violent aura around him. It was overbearing and destructive. Around him and around his torso, golden dragon patterns shone brightly. They twined around his body as if a golden dragon had descended. Amidst the milky white divine light, Su Yi slowly floated out like a golden dragon war god. Are you finally going to get serious? Dugayuma was stunned for a moment. He waved the crystal-clear silver sword in his hand in the air, and killing intent shot out from his eyes. Chila! The sound of the wind breaking was heard immediately. Su Yi's deep eyes were extremely bright, and the sound of a dragon's roar resounded in the air. At the same time, Su Yi held the divine weapon in his hand, and an ancient aura burst out, causing the entire space to tremble. Mu Yang is a kind person, and I believe you are the same. He is trying to discover the beauty of the world, but you chose to run away. It's not that I can't defeat you, but I pity you. You are a pitiful person who only knows how to run away and close your eyes. No matter how strong your strength is, it will be weakened by half because of your heart. Su Yi sneered. His eyes seemed to have penetrated Dugayuma, and he took in a whole view of this woman who was as light as a cloud. Boom! Several streaks of sword light whistled through the air, brushing past Su Yi's ears and passing through. With a loud explosion, the golden earth was suddenly overturned. It was as if a golden dragon had soared into the sky, filling up the entire void and causing the space to explode. Dugayuma's snow-white hand that was holding the long sword trembled. Her face turned pale as she shouted angrily, "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" In an instant, Su Yi's eyes darkened. His mighty chi wrapped around himself tightly as he sighed. No matter what your state of mind is, the mountain is still there, and the water is still flowing. If there was a deep hatred, he would slaughter it with his own hands. If he had the ambition to reach the clouds, he would ascend it with his own hands. Is it the demeanor of an aristocratic family to feel remorse and torment oneself? Clenching her silver teeth, 2 clear lines of tears suddenly fell from the corners of her eyes. The crystal blue teardrops were like pearls in the deep sea, shining brightly in the golden world. Blue tears. Suyi's heart skipped a beat, and he gradually frowned. Streaks of terrifying chi gushed out of Dugi Yuma's body and condensed in the air. The space kept shaking, and the sharp and bloody chi seemed to have pulled him back into a horrifying realm of evil spirit. His eyelashes fluttered, and the moment he opened his eyes, the world suddenly stopped moving, and even Suyi's heart stopped beating. Dugi Yuma's eyes were as calm as the sea, clear and mysterious with a bit of purity. Her teardrops were like the bright moonlight hidden in the depths of the flowing clouds, or the snow-white pearls hidden in the deep sea under the protection of mermaids. A pool of clear water was not enough to describe it, and a glittering jade was even worse. There was a thin layer of mist covering the bottomless emotions in her eyes. Together with her long silver hair, they were like two dewdrops in a waterfall, dazzling everyone who looked at her from afar. Gulp! This is... Before Su-yi could answer, the iron soulfish also opened his small eyes and carefully studied the mysterious girl in front of him. Her eyes were clear and deep, sparkling like snow. Looking at her own reflection in her pupils, it was as if she had tarnished this pair of absolutely beautiful eyes that seemed to contain both heaven and earth. Su-yi had many thoughts about Dugi Yuma closing her eyes. Blind? Or incomplete? But he definitely did not expect this result. For a moment, his mind went blank, and he heard a shocked gasp from mysterious space. Blue crystal double moon eyes. Treasure. It's a treasure. Chi Feihong was so excited that he shouted at Su-yi with a red face. Su-yi's eardrums hurt, and he was surprised. It was definitely a treasure that could make an old fox like Chi Feihong so excited. How powerful is it? Heavenly divine eyes. Everything in sight is within its attacking range. It is invincible in illusions and is immune to almost all illusions in the world. It could be said to be a person's illusory spirit world. Su-yi shook his head repeatedly. A second-rate sect could be considered strong if they had a illusory spirit world, and it required a large amount of primordial stones to activate it. Could this person be comparable to a second-rate sect? Su-yi couldn't help but feel his hair stand on end. The voice that was even stranger and more mysterious came again. It said softly, also, because the blue crystal twin moon pupils are incomparably magical and can be called the best tool for finding treasures, there is no place in the world that she cannot go. The iron soulfish also felt uncomfortable about being seen through. The iron soulfish looked at Su-yi and said, "She seems to have seen through you." Dugi Yuma's beautiful brows furrowed slightly. The mist dispersed, adding a bit of moving brilliance and divine essence. Staring at the arrogant and wild Su-yi, she actually couldn't help but feel a bit shy. After I turned 7, I didn't want to see this filthy world anymore. Anyone who has seen my eyes has become a dead man, and you will not be an exception. Su-yi came back to his senses. He didn't expect Dugi Yuma to have such a powerful support. He smiled faintly. I dare say that you will open your eyes every day to see this wonderful world, and I will not die. Boom! The horrifying sword chi exploded again, and the space rippled in front of Su-yi and Dugi Yuma. The corners of Su-yi's lips curled up slightly. With a tinge of arrogance and unruliness, he openly stared into the pair of mesmerizing eyes. "You deserve to die." Dugi Yuma, who was a little embarrassed, shot out a crystal blue light from her eyes, and the space was torn apart. Wherever the sword chi passed, the air exploded, and the sound of the explosion was heard. In the next second, Su-yi smiled and used his fire elemental yuan chi to increase his speed to the extreme and dodged Dugi Yuma's attack every time. In the end, Dugi Yuma shouted angrily and used her sword chi. The overwhelming sword chi was merciless, and all of them were aimed at the vital parts of Dugi Yuma. Incomparable. The more Su-yi fought, the more shocked he became. As more and more of his vitality was drained, he could feel that Dugi Yuma had already seen through his next move. Chapter 1918. Huff! Huff! Su-yi shouted as he gasped for air. The dense sword aura surrounded him. Cloud shadow, frost step. Instantly, the surging water, attribute energy permeated the air. An icy blue shadow flashed across the sky, and Dugayuma's movement slowed down. The cloud shadow frost step that was refined from the water sky suppressing stone was infused with the purest energy of heaven and earth. It wasn't an illusion, but a real spatial technique. Dugayuma lost control of Su Yi's whereabouts immediately. Unknowingly, Su Yi stood on top of the ice crystal and smiled. "It's over, here I come." Bang, bang, bang. The extreme illusion sky blades spread out, and in a split second, there was a deep sonic boom, accompanied by the trembling of the space. Tiny starlight blades with unparalleled soul energy attacked Dugayuma directly. Rumble. Terrifying attacks continued to fall, and many pitch-black spatial cracks even began to spread in the air, hanging high in the golden sky. Without the slightest pause, after the storm of attacks, the ancient and desolate aura once again condensed, and Su Yi roared. Ancient crimson seal. There was a loud sound of blade whistling in the air. A huge palm print came across the sky and hit Dugayuma heavily. Heaven and earth are vast. Do you think you can escape just by avoiding it? If I were you, I would be the master of this heaven-defying thing. Su Yi roared. Dugayuma, who was retreating, shot out a blue light from his eyes. His aura soared to level 8 Origin Emperor realm, which surprised Su Yi. One finger sword essence, sky splitter. Dugayuma stood proudly on the high ground. There was blood at the corner of his mouth, and his face was pale. Swish! The silver-white sword broke away from Dugayuma's control and gathered at the tip of his index finger. Dugayuma's silver hair danced in the wind. She looked like a dominating sword principal goddess. Break! The sword light gathered at one point, and space condensed into a straight line in an instant. In the next instant, it directly cut across space, cutting it into two. Dugayuma stepped on the clouds, and his eyes turned into two halves like two snow-white moons. There was no emotion in them, only pure killing and destruction. "You don't understand what I've been through." When Dugayuma shouted, it was as if everything in the world was frozen at one point. The light broke through the ancient crimson seal's encirclement and rushed towards Su Yi's forehead. This sword was very powerful. The sword intent was extremely high, and its shocking might was like the ice and snow on a mountain that had not melted for 1,000 years, collapsing in an instant. Su Yi felt the greatest sense of crisis he had ever felt in his life. Such a young girl's heart was tenacious to the extreme. The moment the blue crystal twin moon eyes split apart, Su Yi's mind also shook violently. Chilala, everything seemed to have slowed down. The space exploded, and Su Yi's body began to become weightless in an instant. The space fluctuated, and the fragments gradually dissipated. "Her eyes can lock on my body." His mind recovered quickly, and he operated the Tianyuan ancient scripture to stabilize the Tianyuan demon soul. When he looked up again, the materialized sword chi had pierced through the space and pierced through the demon god battlesuit. A silver-white sword chi poured into his body. The Yuanyang Sky Dragon Bone seemed to have sensed it and set up the last defense. Golden lines spread out, and lifelike dragon scales appeared on his limbs and arms. The shadow of a golden dragon floated between heaven and earth. In Su Yi's mind, the shadow of a golden dragon was moving up and down. His eyes were filled with golden light, and he was resisting the fatal sword. Break! Dugayuma's blue eyes flickered, and his index finger pointed. The sword intent, driven by his soul energy, had reached the extreme. Su Yi was very anxious, and his eyes lit up as he thought of the sky wind sword intent that his master Saruga gave him. Maybe there's still a chance of survival. Closing his eyes, Su Yi allowed the sharp, killing intent to surge. He quickly searched for traces of the sword essence primary instruction in his mind and mind. In the next second, when the sword chi passed through the Yuanyang Sky Dragon Bone, Su Yi heard the sound of bones breaking. His entire body was brought up by a violent force, and he was shot in the golden soil behind him like a cannonball. The sky wind's sword intent is gone. Damn! A trace of doubt and despair flashed in his eyes. The sword chi was like a shackle, and it instantly controlled the yuan chi in his body. Like a machine that had lost its rotation, a long line of blood was drawn in the air, and Su-Yi was lying on the ground. Punk! The shock wave that came out of nowhere was very shocking. Overwhelming killing intent and soul energy gushed out. The entire space was filled with sand and stones, and the golden light was surging. In a huge deep pit, a huge gully spread out like a spider web. Su-Yi was lying in the deep pit, and his blood was surging. It's over. Dugayuma's eyes were surging, and she stared at the man who had touched her. From the beginning of the ranking competition, the man who had constantly refreshed her view of him in the first and second rounds finally fell. The shock wave in the space had not completely disappeared. The hurricane lifted Dugayuma's long skirt, and her snow-white arms were glowing. Her pretty face was filled with disappointment. This world is still a mess after all. Roar! When Dugayuma closed her eyes again, a huge white dragon rushed into the sky, and the golden sky was as bright as day. With the appearance of the dragon, the energy of heaven and earth changed rapidly, and a large amount of energy hit Su-Yi's body. Under the roar of the dragon and tiger, Su-Yi's body appeared from the deep pit. So this is the secret of the White Flood Dragon God. In the midst of the chaos, a low voice suddenly sounded. It turned out that when Su-Yi was about to lose consciousness, the sword chi had locked onto his heartbeat. Su-Yi suddenly felt an extremely strong life force pass through his heart and soul and into his meridians. The incomparably hot, demonic beast energy quickly spread out, forcing the sword chi out of his body. At the same time, his dantian was also filled with this extremely strong energy. When the White Flood Dragon God gave Su-Yi the 3 talents, it called it the Deep Mystery to Su-Yi. At the same time, it also told Su-Yi that it was best not to use this kind of power. Unexpectedly, the mystery of the White Flood Dragon God could only be revealed when he was in a desperate situation. Slowly walking out of the smoke, Su-Yi's whole upper body was exposed, and under the golden light, it showed a unique, wild, manly charm. A thin layer of light fell and moved with the wind. Su-Yi's eyes suddenly became deep and clear again, and a vast and ancient aura burst out, and the whole space trembled. Chapter 1919. You are the strongest woman I have ever met. A dull voice could be heard. Su-Yi's entire body was undergoing a bizarre transformation. His originally lustrous body was now sparkling and translucent. The dragon patterns coiled around his body and shone with golden radiance. After the scales fell off, it was as though he was reborn. Su-Yi still couldn't suppress the throbbing in his heart. If the White Flood Dragon God didn't save his life at the last moment, he might have been severely injured. Is this the power of an aristocratic family? Even she can only stay on the 2nd level. How terrifying will the Dragon Azure be? She carefully sized up Su-Yi, who was walking out from the dust. He was glowing with a mystical luster. The profound and unfathomable patterns were like divine halos. For some reason, she could feel that Su-Yi's aura had become stronger. She had already concealed her 8th level of Origin Emperor Realm. Now, she was actually on par with Su-Yi. This is the final strike. Su-Yi exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His body had reached a perfect state. If he could find a place to cultivate peacefully, Su-Yi was certain that he would definitely be able to break through to the 8th level of the Origin Emperor Realm. The White Flood Dragon God gave you the last bit of his life force. Make good use of it. The Iron Soulfish whispered. Nodding his head solemnly, Su-Yi looked back at the sky, wind, jade, annulus. Su-Yi must pass this stage. Pass it for the sake of the White Flood Dragon God, for Sruga, for Duamu Xiaoman, and most of all for himself. His essence chi surged out again. The milky white divine halo around Su-Yi's body surged rapidly. Electric radiance lingered around his body. Immediately after, his bones and tendons crackled. The hundreds of phantoms behind him underwent extreme changes. Demons subduing illusionary tone. Chi Feihong's eyes trembled. He thought that it must be because the white flood dragon god's power was still in his body. Immediately, the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. Fisk, the massive demonic beast phantoms were abnormally ferocious. Su Yi's heart erupted like a volcano. An abnormally terrifying energy wave surged out from his body. I will prove that the world is not as bad as you think. The fierce look in Su Yi's eyes suddenly deepened, and the fierce look in his eyes turned into endless killing intent. With a thought, monstrous killing intent surged out from his body. In the air, demonic beasts ran amok, and gods and devils chanted. An unparalleled might revolve around Su Yi's body. Raising the heavenly star shock soul high up, Su Yi's gaze was incomparably cold as he loudly shouted, "Blood Phoenix, sky-splitting slash." Facing the attack, Dugayuma's aura became stronger. Sharp sword chi surrounded his body. Su Yi's words touched his heart, and a relieved smile appeared on his face. Fearsome sword intent gathered on his index finger. Before the formless pressure could be exerted, the air had already been split into two. Bang! The divine bird flapped its fiery wings, and endless flames rapidly emerged from its wings. It was going to sweep away all the filth in the world and eliminate all the injustice in the world. The raging flames that filled the sky were overbearing and destructive. All of them gathered in the dazzling sword radiance. The galaxy flowed, and heaven and earth shook. At that moment, the great power of the Blood Phoenix sword once again descended upon the world. Chirp! Under the clear cry of the divine bird, the domineering aura passed through thousands of waves, cut through the shattered void, and collided with the sharp sword intent with an indomitable will. Bang! The world shook, and when a huge sonic boom reached the extreme, only a crisp shattering sound could be heard. At this moment, the world was silent, and the empty space was filled with the sound of silence. Torrential, spiraling energy waves completely destroyed the Golden Land, turning it into a barren wasteland. Countless terrifyingly huge ravines covered the ground like cliffs, and one after another, bottomless pits were entrenched in the ground, as if they had been there all along. With a muffled sound, the Golden Mountain in the distance was directly destroyed. The huge hills collapsed and cracked, and the gravel shot into the sky. Long blood streaked across the golden sky. Su Yi's demonic god battlesuit had been completely shattered. His naked body was full of wounds caused by the sword intent. When the huge shock wave hit his body, Su Yi felt a heart-wrenching pain. Gloomy blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. After retreating for thousands of meters, Su Yi's eyes trembled. In the distance, the smiling black shadow was floating in the wind like a kite with a broken string. After swallowing a bottle of spiritual liquid, Su Yi activated the primordial chi in his Dantian and Sea of Chi again. He turned into a shadow and caught Dugayuma, who was falling down from the sky. Kneeling on one knee, Dugayuma was about to pass out. Her face was pale, and her soft body was like a bird without wings. She was extremely weak, and her lips were dry. Su Yi pondered and poured half a bottle of spiritual liquid into Dugayuma's mouth. Her hair streaked across Su Yi's arm like the Milky Way flowing through his heart. He felt an inexplicable pain. The girl in his eyes was so weak and so in need of others' love. Dugayuma's lips were half opened, and a bitter voice came out from her pale lips. "Don't kill my father. Who are you?" "Don't. My family don't." Su Yi was speechless for a long time as he stood there in a daze. It was as if he had returned to the time when he was in the spirit ancient village and saw the familiar people disappear in front of his eyes. He unconsciously pulled up Dugayuma's hair and let her small hand grab his arm tightly. After a while, the spiritual liquid entered her body. Under Su Yi's catalysis, Dugayuma's face looked better. She opened her eyes again and said in a trembling voice, "Why did you save me?" As soon as she finished her words, she tried to open Su Yi's arms, but Su Yi held her even more strongly. Su Yi shouted, "You have to face it no matter how hard it is. The past is the past, and your family won't be happy to see you like this." Duggyuma, who was still in Su Yi's arms, suddenly stopped crying. She closed her eyes as if she had an epiphany. Blue tears flew past her ears. "Thank you, but I lost." Duggyuma's body moved slightly, and her jade-like fingers clenched tightly. Her blood fell into the soil along with her tears. Su Yi sighed heavily on Duggyuma's pink face. His eyes moved, and he said in a low voice, "I have personally experienced the two clan and also witnessed the tragedy of the two clan. It is a kind of luck to be alive. You shouldn't torture yourself. Take revenge if you have a grudge. Take revenge fiercely, but I don't know how strong my enemy is. Master always said that I'm not strong enough. I really don't know." Duggyuma shook her head, and she was extremely hesitant. Her messy silver hair flew up, and her painful expression lingered. This was the eternal pain in her heart. Is there anything that sword god Dugu Xie can't do? Frowning, Su Yi thought back and forth, and a bad feeling gradually rose in his heart. Chapter 1920. Massacre the Village. After Chief Fei Hong said this word, he hid in the mysterious space and didn't say anything else. "Say something." Su Yi sensed that something was wrong, and his tone quickly turned serious. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. Immediately after, a bolt of lightning bolted down from the mysterious space, accompanied by the roar of thunder. The weak Chief Fei Hong let out a heart-wrenching cry as the mysterious light ball shone. "Su Yi, are you trying to kill me?" Chief Fei Hong's eyes widened, his charred face filled with shock and fear as his body trembled. As his cold voice fell, Su Yi's murderous aura and killing intent rapidly surged out from his body. His sharp gaze fell on Chief Fei Hong as he spoke in a serious voice. "Tell me the truth. How much do you know about Duggyuma's village being massacred? Were you and the demon-subduing sect involved as well?" Su Yi's eyes emitted waves of coldness. Both Iron Soul Puppet and Chief Fei Hong had goosebumps because of Su Yi's seriousness. Simultaneously, astonishment and fear crawled into their hearts like ants. After a moment of silence, Chief Fei Hong's gaze flickered as he spoke in a low voice. "I've told you before that the Duanmu Qingtian couldn't be found in the next few decades. The aristocratic families would naturally request the 10 of us to search the entire Tianyin continent. Wherever the Duanmu Qingtian set foot in, we would have to search again. Even if it wasn't the demon-subduing sect, it could be the Immortal Sword sect or the Limitless sect. Anything is possible." Chief Fei Hong's voice gradually weakened as he spoke. His gaze was filled with pain as he probed. "Massacring villages is not uncommon. I heard you say that the Sacred Mountain even massacred the Li clan. For the sake of the Crimson Water Heaven Crystal, the Sacred Mountain was willing to slaughter the Li clan. In order to curry favor with the Long clan, the other sects would search all the places where Duanmu Qingtian, who was in possession of the Gold Heaven Suppressing Stone, had stayed. They could do anything." With a deep sigh, Su Yi suddenly thought that Duggyuma was also a sacrifice for the aristocratic families and the other forces. Duggyuma alone wasn't qualified to do so. Long family was the main culprit behind all of this. "Have you fought with Long Song?" Su Yi's tone softened. When he looked at Duggyuma again, there was no longer any murderous intent in his deep eyes. When he opened his eyes, the first person he saw was Su Yi. Duggyuma was used to Su Yi's resolute and mature face. Duggyuma's eyes sparkled as he turned his head. His blue tears had already condensed as he said in disappointment, "I lost in less than 3 rounds. His cultivation has reached the level of origin ancestor, and he is not at the beginner level. An 18-year-old origin ancestor." Even though Su Yi was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he heard it. An 18-year-old youth had achieved the level of origin ancestor, which was difficult for ordinary people to achieve in their lifetime. If Chunyu was still around, he would probably spit out blood. Dugayuma had the strength of an 8th-level origin emperor. His sword essence was comparable to the cultivation of an origin ancestor, but his strength was still inferior. Long Tsan's cultivation of origin ancestor had shocked the world. Master is right. I'm still far from it. I can't even defeat Long Tsan. How can I challenge the aristocratic families? Challenge Draconis. She unconsciously held Dugayuma's shoulder tightly. Her tender shoulder kept twitching, and the cold blue light sparkled again. Su-yi subconsciously wiped away Dugayuma's tears and comforted her in a deep voice. His smile was as bright as the spring sun as he said softly, "One day, you will also stand at the peak of martial arts. Take down all those insufferably arrogant people. If you can do it, so can I. Oh yes, there is still Muyang." Dugayuma's throat trembled, and her eyes were misty. Following Su-yi's words, her consciousness had flown to the moment she had been longing for, and her eyes were rippling. Chi, chi, chi. 2 air-breaking sounds came from behind, and the force of thunder and waves swept away the clouds. When the two of them saw that the entire golden world had turned into ruins, Su Chun and Lan Balian were shocked. High in the sky, Su Chun and Lan Balian stopped in their tracks and opened their mouths in shock, as though they had forgotten to breathe. This was the interior of the Ten Jade building. It was imaginable how intense the battle between Su-yi and Dugayuma had been. "You're here." Su-yi didn't even turn his head as he lowered his head and said. Dugayuma was in Su-yi's arms, and her face was blushing. She was powerless and could only let Su-yi hug her. Lan Xiaoyan and Su Chun looked at each other awkwardly. They immediately nodded and said embarrassedly, "Are you all okay?" Su-yi gently placed Dugayuma on the ground. Su-yi said to Lan Xiaoyan as he released a slight ripple of heat from his body, "Miss Lan, please treat Miss Dugu." Then he stood up and looked at the heavenly winged jade annulus, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Su Chun quickly went up with a shocked expression. "What about the other two?" Su-yi asked. Of course, he was referring to Tyrant Si Santong and Yuchi Chongfeng. Su Chun sneered and shrugged his nose proudly. "Those 2 ants are not enough to threaten me. I would have beaten them up long ago." Su-yi had also said this to Dugayuma. At this moment, a trace of embarrassment flashed across Dugayuma's pale face. But more importantly, she was relieved and happy. When Lan Balian saw Dugayuma's blue eyes, she was shocked and exclaimed with a smile, "Miss Dugu, your eyes are so beautiful. You must open your eyes and let us see more of them in the future." Dugayuma smiled bitterly, and her pearl-like eyes were moved. She said, "Thank you, Miss Lan." After saying that, a stream of fresh water yuan qi was injected into Dugayuma's heart meridian. Su Chun and Su-yi, who were watching from the side, were relieved. Who won in the end? When Su Chun heard Su-yi's question, his expression darkened. He curled his lips and looked at Lan Balian. He was a little discouraged. She won by 1 move. Shortly after, Su Chun spoke with an unconvinced expression. His eyebrows were filled with heroic spirit as he spoke in a deep voice. "When I go back and come out of the pagoda fire sea, I will definitely defeat her. Is it the secret land of the Thunder Fire Holy Temple?" Su Chun nodded vigorously, his eyes filled with sincerity as he said eagerly, "Yes, yes. That's it. Didn't the temple master invite you to refine the demon sword? When the heavenly wind jade annulus ends, come back with me." Su-yi waved his hand, his mind instantly calming down as he spoke to Su Chun with a solemn expression. "Let's talk about it when we have the chance. I'll leave his place to you." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. His green robe fluttered behind him. Su Chun pulled on the corner of Su-yi's robe, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll go with you." Dugayuma, who was sitting at the side and recuperating, opened her eyes and said in a low voice, "I've already said so. Are you still going to go in?" Chapter 1921. Lan Yelyan, who was treating Dugayuma's injuries, also frowned. The battle between Su Yi, and Dugi Yumal was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine that Su Yi would be able to win against Long Song, who was much stronger than Dugi Yumal. Su Chun and Lan Yelyan's eyes were solemn, and their faces were tense. Su Chun said softly, "No matter what, Su Yi, I will walk the rest of the path with you." The two brothers looked at each other without saying a word. The pride in their hearts surged like waves crashing against a hidden reef. Su Yi took a deep breath and patted Su Chen's shoulder heavily. Many words were stuck in his throat. Memories of the sacred martial assembly flashed in his mind. That sentence, "I don't ask to be born on the same day, but I ask to die on the same day, month, and year. If I violate this oath, may I be struck by lightning." After a moment of silence, Su Yi slowly opened his mouth and said emotionally, "Su Chun, only I can end the matter between me and the Long family. It's against the rules for both families to help me deal with Long Song at the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament." But Su Chun still wanted to argue, but his anxious eyes drifted to Lan Yelyan. Lan Yelyan's palm was on Dugi Yuma's back as she said, "The battle between the families is no longer a matter of today. After Draconis, our Sky Sea City has never been afraid of the Long family. Su Yi, you don't have to worry about this. Yes, join hands. Destroy Long Song." Su Chen's eyes shone brightly as he clenched his fists. He couldn't help but be high-spirited. He still didn't know how strong Long Song was. If it was just to defeat Long Song, Su Yi wouldn't be so serious. "You guys should just stay here." His voice reverberated in the air. Su Yi instantly turned into a ball of fire and charged into the Heavenly Wind Jade Wall. Su Chen's scalp went numb. "Su Yi." Su Chun stomped the ground. His eyes were filled with anxiousness and unwillingness. He turned to look at Lan Yelyan and the Heavenly Wind Jade Wall before leaning heavily against a rock. Sigh. A powerful shock wave shot out, smashing a deep hole in the golden ground. Lan Linglian's eyes trembled as she sighed. With Su Yi's character, even 8 horses can't pull him back. He's just worried about you. Shu Qin gritted his teeth and glanced at Dugi Yuma. "If we go in now, Su, you will definitely fall out with me." "Miss Yuma, how strong is Long Song?" Dugi Yuma, who was at the 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm, blushed slightly. Recalling the 3 rounds of fighting with Long Song, he was still shocked. Above Origin Zone Stage, 3rd level. "I can't tell his exact strength with my current cultivation base." Su Chen's breathing stagnated and a vortex of light appeared in his eyes. The hot blood in his body instantly cooled down a bit as he ruthlessly said, "Even if I have to risk my life, I will save Su Yi." Furiously rising to his feet, void dust robes and hair danced in the wind. His eyes were filled with determination, and his face was ashen to the extreme. Lan Balian and Dugi Yumal were instantly infected by Su Chen's lofty sentiments. Lan Balian said softly, "Su Yi's life is worth it to have a brother like you." As for Dugi Yumal, after the last bit of water energy entered her body, she activated her self-healing ability. Her eyes were filled with blue light. She had long been shocked by the brotherly relationship between Su Chun and Su Yi. "Is this what you meant by the splendor of the world?" The corner of her mouth curled into a smile, and a touch of coldness instantly shrouded her eyes. The 3 of them looked at the Heavenly Wind Jade Wall in the distance, which was overflowing with light and flickering aura. They began to cultivate and recover. A majestic energy of heaven and earth rapidly filled their bodies. In the vast yellow heaven and earth, the 3 youths of the aristocratic families were implicated together because of Su Yi. Ga, walking on the harder golden soil, compared to the second layer, which was full of golden soil, the first layer had a lot more fresh elements. Gazing into the distance, there was a lake with rising mist, a lush forest with lush vegetation, and a boundless grassland that stretched as far as the eye could see. There were also volcanoes that were on the verge of erupting. Blazing red lava covered the walls of the mountains, lingering like dragon scales. It was mighty and destructive, and the aura of death threatened the lives of the world at any time. This was a world of elements. Closing his eyes, he didn't need to circulate his energy to feel the majestic power of space surging towards him. He was instantly astonished. If I could come here that day, I would have reached the Yuan domain realm from the origin ancestor realm. Qi Fei Hong exclaimed as he looked at the magical world in front of him. The strange scene in front of him seemed to include the entire sky barbarian continent, the void, the land, and the 6 continents, 3 lands, and 1 sea. Where could Long Tsang be in such a big world? Yi stood on a mountain peak after searching for a while and breathed in the abundant spiritual energy of the world. He instantly entered the state of condensing his energy to become a god. Then, he slowly sat down with a serious look in his eyes. Forming a hand seal, he quickly began to refine the spiritual liquid that he had just swallowed. At the same time, he took out 3 bottles of spiritual liquid from his space to protect himself. The iron soulfish said softly, "This time, you don't have Xiao Man's help. You have to be prepared to face such an opponent alone." With his eyes closed, Yi's heart and soul moved slightly. His eyelashes seemed to be moving. "I have to fight even if I can't win. There are too many things on my shoulders in this battle." Yi said with a chuckle. Cold fluctuations flashed across his eyes as he revealed his killing intent. "Moreover, if we talk about the inheritance of the Golden Dragon, he has to call me grandfather." Yi's heart sank when he recalled his promise to the old Golden Dragon that he would look for him again when he reached the origin ancestor realm within 3 years. After the heavenly wind, Yi prepared to return to the Chaos region. He would gather his strength and step onto the sacred mountain. Then, he would uncover the true secrets of the primordial calamity. Chila, the iron soulfish, did not say anything else. He admired Yi's confidence and conviction. The only thing he could do was to help Yi find Long Tsang's location while he was recovering. Time passed slowly. After half a day, Yi finally opened his eyes. His clear eyes shone brightly. He looked at the huge space. Volcanoes, deserts, grasslands, and lakes. That was where the Golden Dragon was. "Should we continue to look for the heavenly wind, jade, annulus?" Qi Fei Hong said. "In such a place, with the help of the mysterious space and the 10 jade building, Qi Fei Hong felt that he had an unprecedented recovery speed." He shook his head resolutely. The area of the first level could no longer be described as large. It was clearly bigger than the second level. If he were to search alone, he might not even find it in 10 days or half a month. Chapter 1922. Let him come and find us. Yi's lips curled into a smile. The iron soulfish nodded. Dugiyumal was able to fight Long Tsang in such a short time, so he must not have found Long Tsang by himself. With that thought in mind, Yi decided on a direction and headed straight to the volcano. His soul power was at the 5th level of the fire form, so he could not waste it. As soon as he said that, Yi's eyes turned cold. The fire elemental Yuan Qi whirlpool spun rapidly, wrapping him up in flames and dashing into the distance. Stepping in the air, the fire wings spun behind his back. Yi approached the volcano that was spewing out smoke, and his heart tightened. The vast aura was like that of a primordial beast that was about to erupt. The 2 adjacent volcanoes were like 2 giant eyes of a ferocious demon beast. Boiling lava was constantly flowing down, burning the mountain range into pits and ravines along the way. It was like the hands of a ghost reaching for the endless mountains and rivers below. What a magnificent volcano! Yi sighed. He couldn't help but use the steps of 100 transformative steps to soar into the sky. A single wing spanned 100 miles. As soon as Yi stepped on the volcanic rocks, the burning sensation rushed from the soles of his feet to his meridians. The violent power tore apart his already wide meridians. Swoosh! The sound of his muscles exploding could be heard with the naked eye. Before he could say anything, Yi's eyes were already glowing with a red light. The sound of heavy breathing gradually rose and fell. Yi turned his palms into fists and the wind from his fists seemed to have been strengthened. In an instant, the two red rocks were smashed into fine powder. Thick smoke rose, and sparks flew everywhere. Looking at his shiny hands, Su-Yi was satisfied. In this place where the fire element was the most abundant, it was as if this place was tailor-made for him. It's similar to the burial of Sky Cold Ground. Su-Yi nodded slowly. He clenched his fists and carefully sensed the fire tribute energy surging towards him like a great river. For the first time in his life, Su-Yi rapidly cultivated along the path of the primordial supreme power. Su-Yi knew that without relying on the heavenly wind jade annulus, just cultivating at the mouth of the volcano would bring unimaginable benefits. Rumble. As the blazing hot flame energy rushed into his meridians, Su-Yi felt as if he were a giant furnace. An endless stream of energy was being refined by the primordial chaos supreme skill, rapidly transforming into the attribute of origin energy and rushing into his Dantian's Qi. Looking into his body, the starlight surged, and the divine spiritual meridians shone brightly. His Dantian was also mysterious. Su-Yi then he started cultivating the fire elemental Yuan Qi. He had made up his mind to fight with Long Song. Even the volcano here has so many uses. The sacred sea of flames is really worth a trip. Su-Yi calmed his qi and focused his mind. After finishing his last thought, he formed a seal with his hands. A mysterious light pattern shone in the sky and stuck close to Su-Yi's body. Su-Yi quickly entered the meditative state of an old monk. After an unknown amount of time, Su-Yi was immersed in this environment. He had a deeper understanding of the elemental Yuan Qi. Like an hourglass, time slowly passed. Su-Yi's Dantian Qi once again expanded to the limit. Following the opening of his fifth profound gate, Su-Yi felt the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth increase in speed. More and more fire elemental Yuan Qi poured into him. Correspondingly, Su-Yi felt unprecedentedly comfortable. His mind was carefree, as if he was sightseeing in the vast ocean. Su-Yi opened his sparkling eyes. Flames flickered in his eyes, and his entire skin glowed with a faint red color. He shouted in a low voice. Boom! The scorching hot space ripples around him quickly dissipated. With Su-Yi as the center, a circular shockwave blasted out. The entire volcano shook slightly. Su-Yi had already adapted to the temperature of the ground. Su-Yi, who was sitting on the ground, did not expect the 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm to come so quickly. The continuous battles were not only for the cultivation of Yuan Qi, but also for the refinement of his blood and flesh essence. That was why he could make such rapid progress. Wong. Far away, in the desert, a faint dragon roar could be heard, causing the entire desert to tremble. Then, the roar disappeared. Above the void, the floating clouds scattered. Su-Yi, whose soul force had increased again, naturally felt the change. His eyes moved slightly as he touched the divine dragon token on his chest. Then, he closed his eyes and began cultivating. Let's do it in one go. Take the opportunity to cultivate again, Su-Yi said in a deep voice. This time, Su-Yi was even closer to the volcano crater than before. The strong wind, coming from the front, was scorching and pungent. The fire wave burned off Su-Yi's clothes, revealing his exposed muscles that had a metallic luster under the scarlet light. Su-Yi, if possible, swallow the demonic core and spiritual liquid together. You can cultivate faster this way. You don't have to worry about your foundation being unstable here. Qi Feihong was cultivating at the same time. The aura around him was fluctuating. His illusory figure was gradually showing signs of materializing in the mysterious space. Su-Yi nodded gently and swallowed the origin ancestor demonic core and spiritual liquid. Then, without stopping, he walked towards the volcano crater. At the side, the sparkling lava was flickering with the radiance of the raging fire. A figure that was not considered strong was walking towards the volcano crater step by step. Only Su-Yi knew what kind of pain he was going through. He was going through the pain of cultivating the diamond body all over again. However, it was far more painful than the last time. Every step was extremely difficult. Su Yi's determined face was covered in sweat and tears. He allowed the various forces in his body to tear and collide. If anyone saw Su Yi's current cultivation method, they would be incomparably shocked. With a mixed Yuan demon body and the divine mystical spiritual veins, Su Yi's physical body and soul were far superior to others. Coupled with his fire manifestation soul, it was difficult to find a place in the 10 Jade Pavilion that could allow Su Yi to improve faster than a volcano. Long song. When you come, I will beat you to the ground. Su Yi's throat was dry. Large drops of crystal-clear sweat dripped onto the ground. In an instant, thick smoke billowed. The closer he got to the volcano, the more violent the Yuan Qi in Su Yi's body surged. Although the iron soulfish did not say anything, the shock in his eyes could not be concealed. This human is in a race against time. He is using his heaven-defying physical body to resist the surging Yuan Qi. In a place like this where the Yuan Qi is so dense, as long as he perseveres for a short period of time, his improvement will be unimaginable. Qi Feihong also shook his head and sighed. I'm afraid there's only one such youth in the world. The aristocratic families may really fall this time. Chapter 1923. As he got closer, the volcano's crater was getting brighter. When Sui finally arrived at the volcano's crater, the soaring fire wave was like a giant dragon soaring into the sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws before falling back into the volcano's abyss. The giant waterfall brought along a matchless storm that splashed flames all over the sky. Looking disdainfully at the heaven and earth, Su Yi's figure gradually grew taller. After a long journey, Su Yi's body had completely assimilated into the extreme experience of the fire attribute. Looking at the fire dragon wave that was devouring the heaven and earth, Su Yi's eyes shot out radiance. His green robe fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were filled with pride and unyielding. This time, Su Yi was going to conquer the entire volcano. 9th level of the Origin Emperor realm. Come, Su Yi exclaimed softly. He was like a sponge that was devouring the fire attribute elements in the void. His hands were dancing in the air, and the radiance from the Origin Supreme technique was extremely dazzling. 3 days passed by slowly. In the 10 Jade Pavilion, 1 day of cultivation was equivalent to 50 days of cultivation in the spiritual land outside. This was the 7th day of the 10 Jade Pavilion's opening, including the time spent on the journey. On the 2nd floor, all the positions were already determined. Lan Balian, Su Chun, and Dugi Yuma actually came to an agreement to cultivate together on the 2nd floor. 150 days of crazy cultivation had allowed the three of them to advance by leaps and bounds. The Origin Emperor realm was difficult to reach. With the help of the 10 Jade Pavilion, Su Chun and Lan Balian's benefits at the 7th level of the Origin Emperor realm were far superior to the 3rd floor. After Dugi Yuma finished cultivating, he didn't close his eyes anymore. After a long period of cultivation and recovery, the aura around him was extremely powerful. The sharp sword Qi and Gales could tear the void apart at any time. Standing up, Dugi Yuma's every move was affecting Su Chun and Lan Balian's heart. The two of them stood up one after another. Su Chen's eyes flickered with lightning as electric arcs revolved around his body. He roared with intense, killing intent. We can't wait any longer. Let me go in and take a look. Sung. Dugi Yuma's sword Qi was released unintentionally and blasted out a sword mark in front of Su Chun. His crystal blue eyes were filled with fear. Look at the sky wind jade wall. Following Dugi Yuma's words, Su Chun and Lan Yelian discovered that Su, Yi, and Long Song's names were still engraved on the heavenly wind jade annulus. What's wrong with that? There's no change. It's been 3 days, but there's been no movement at all. Su Chun grumbled. His tone was a bit anxious as he paced back and forth. Dugi Yuma shook his head and said in a low voice, Long Song's soul energy is extremely powerful. No one can escape once they enter. Now, it's been 3 days and Su, Yi, and Longsong's names haven't changed at all. This. Su Chun gradually calmed down. He nodded, his eyes filled with doubt. Lan Yelian immediately came to a realization. She stepped forward and said, "This can only mean that Long Song and Su Yi have not met yet." Dugayuma glanced at Lan Balian and said softly, "That's what I think. I don't think Long Song will allow a thorn in his side to enter his territory. There's only one possibility. Long Song is also at a critical juncture. Could it be that Su Yi can't find him?" Su Chen was puzzled. Dugayuma shook his head. He had just entered the first level. At that time, Long Song hadn't found the Sky Wind Jade Wall, but he had been knocked out in just a few moves. The three of them were speechless. Su Chen took a deep breath and said, "Let's continue cultivating. No result is the best result. I believe in Su Yi. We have to quickly increase our strength so that we can help Su Yi." As soon as he said that, the three of them sat under the Sky Wind Jade Wall again. The Yuan Qi storm blew again. Lightning, waves, and sword intent resonated in the void. The surrounding light pierced through the heaven and earth. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye in the first level. The Iron Soulfish and Qi Fei Hong were helping Su Yi observe the changes in the heaven and earth while cultivating. On the other hand, to the Iron Soul Puppet's shock, the commotion in the distant desert was growing louder and louder. Qi Fei Hong had clearly noticed the changes in the situation, and his expression was extremely uneasy and worried. However, it was also filled with fear as he muttered to himself, "Although cultivating here can improve at lightning speed, I'll always be on tenterhooks if that long brat doesn't come." The Iron Soulfish couldn't be bothered to talk to Qi Fei Hong. Such an ordinary human wasn't worthy of talking to him. He then lazily returned to his own entrance. The sudden increase in energy in Su Yi's body was extremely beneficial to him. The girl hidden in this brat's soul should have woken up by now. If she can make it in time, she might be able to help this brat. In the distance, a dragon's roar reverberated. The tremors were even more violent than a few days ago. The Iron Soulfish could feel the shocking throbbing even with his eyes closed. Su Yi was at the mouth of the volcano. Endless fire-attributed energy was constantly rushing into Su Yi's body. The Emperor Sparrow's wings stirred up wind behind him. The vast energy was collapsing, and the entire volcano was on the verge of collapse. The sharp killing aura spread between heaven and earth. After reaching the 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm, Su Yi felt that he was incomparably close to the fire-attributed Yuan Qi. There were no restrictions on his body. The pervasive energy placed him in a huge vat of dye. Swish, swish, swish. 9th level Origin Emperor, break for me. Su Yi kept shouting in his heart. He quickly circulated the Origin Supreme technique. The mysterious light seemed to be attracted by it. The dense light carried a sharp and destructive attack and flooded every meridian in his body. This energy is starting to help Su Yi. The Iron Soulfish narrowed his eyes. Being in the entrance, he naturally knew how serious the backlash from the mysterious energy was. Ever since Su Yi's Origin Emperor realm cultivation became more and more stable, the restless energy had started to submit to him. It even had the intention to show goodwill and get closer to him. With the support of the mysterious energy, Su Yi only felt a sense of comfort, no matter how terrifying the flames from the volcano were or how violent the surrounding energy storm was. After his entire body was tempered by the fire, Su Yi's 7 orifices started to show the whites of his eyes. Su Yi's hand seals changed. Su Yi suddenly opened his eyes. The flames in his eyes were blazing. If anyone saw this, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the ground. Above the sky, a huge fire pillar rushed to the vault of heaven. Under the mighty sweetness, the space trembled, the wind blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The blazing energy destroyed the depths of the void. The destructive force spread across the sky as if it was the end of the world. Su Yi, who was surrounded by the flames, gradually rose into the air. Like a god, he punched toward the fire pillar with both hands. Two dazzling fist winds, one on the left and one on the right, smashed into the fire dragon like it was crushing dry weeds. Rumble! Immediately, the space started to distort rapidly. The blazing high temperature started to shrink at an extremely strange speed. Su Yi's gaze started to shrink. Chapter 1924. The power of the stars in his body rushed into the fire pillar. As if adding the finishing touch, the fire dragon opened its mouth and let out an earth-shattering roar. Immediately after, the fire dragon enveloped Su Yi. Puffed. In the next second, a series of deafening thunder resounded beside him. Su Yi's arms were waving casually within the flames. A monstrous suction force emanated from his left and right palms. As it surged out, the last bit of energy from the flames was sucked into his body. Crack! Another crisp sound was heard. Su Yi's aura rose again. As though the volcano had accepted Su Yi's conquest, the underground magma started to boil and spurred out in large amounts. Standing at the peak of the volcano, Su Yi had an inexplicable chill. His terrifying strength suppressed the boiling fire element. His figure was like a supreme being of heaven and earth, domineering and destructive. I'm finally at the 9th level of the origin sovereign realm. Su Yi's eyes emitted cold electricity. Wherever the light passed, the void rippled. At this moment, a man carrying a stone tablet behind him narrowed his eyes. He didn't hide his killing intent at all. I've let you linger at death's door for 3 days. You actually gave me such a big surprise. Su Yi frowned slightly. The energy in his energy center's sea of qi started to surge rapidly as though it was challenged. His energy surged out from his wide meridians. 6 profound entrances opened simultaneously. Su Yi's aura was already at its peak. He raised his eyebrows and looked at the horizon behind him. A young man with a golden dragon shadow behind him broke through the air. His eyes were as cold as water. On his back was a stone tablet that was glowing with a mystical light. The golden dragon behind him was like a real dragon. The huge dragon's head was ferocious. Its lifelike scales were constantly releasing unparalleled divine power. A destructive force struck the heavens and earth. Immediately after, it blasted towards Su Yi. The young man was Long Tsang. Although his speed wasn't very fast, he had closed the distance between him and Su Yi in the blink of an eye. An 18-year-old at the 4th level of the origin ancestor realm. Such talent is unheard of. The Iron Soulfish exclaimed. After staying in the Sky Barbarian continent for almost 10,000 years, he couldn't help but exclaim. Chi Feihong's eyes narrowed while shock and terror flashed through his eyes. Even if he was in the depths of the mysterious space, he was still able to sense the monstrous pressure that came out of thin air, and he couldn't help but gulp while his face trembled. Su Yi, the opponent, has already reached the 4th level of the origin ancestor realm. This young man from the Long family is amazing. Su Yi nodded and looked at the thing on Long Tsang's back. It turned out that Long Tsang was carrying the heavenly wind jade annulus on his back. No wonder he couldn't find Long Tsang. Are you finally willing to come out? The corner of Su Yi's mouth curled up slightly. The essence qi beneath Su Yi's feet rose abruptly. After reaching the 9th level of the origin emperor realm, the fire attribute essence qi swept out like a meteorite, piercing through the air and shattering the supreme pressure into pieces. Boom! At the same time, Su Yi retreated backward. As Long Tsang landed on the ground, there was a loud bang, and the entire shockwave sent all the lava that was spurting down flying. Long Tsang looked at Su Yi's figure from afar. His eyes were filled with coldness as he said softly, "Father told me that you will be my lifelong enemy." Swish! Long Tsang slowly put down the sky wind jade annulus on his back and lifted his chin slightly. His long and narrow eyes were overflowing with golden light. Dragon power filled the air as he shook his head. However, in my opinion, that's all you are. Enemy? What a joke. Long Tsang's eyes were filled with disdain. He mocked his father's words from the bottom of his heart. He moved his wrist. His eyes were gloomy as he said arrogantly, "Are you done? Compared to your father, you are definitely an idiot." Swoosh. Long Tsong didn't expect Yi to be able to remain calm under his dragon power. His face turned gloomy as he said softly, "Aunt, do you still want to talk big? You're courting death." Long Tsong sneered. The starry sky soul in his hand flickered and swept past the corner of Yi's eyes. A cold light shot out instantly, and an invisible pressure pushed Long Tsong back in the void. Long Tsong, who could obviously feel the pressure, turned pale as he heard Yi say, "I will give you one last chance. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me everything you know. Otherwise, it won't be so simple." Yi said coldly. Long Tsong seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. Although Yi made him feel a little pressured, it was simply a fantasy that a 9th-level origin emperor could defeat a 5th-level origin ancestor. Moreover, he had the golden dragon bloodline inheritance. "The ignorant are fearless. I admire your courage." As though he was looking at the most idiotic person, Long Tsong finally shouted coldly, and a gush of earth attribute chi surged. Instantly, the entire sky trembled and a huge wave of pressure rushed towards Yi like a bolt of lightning. The powerful aura brought with it a terrifying gust of wind that swept across the area. Earth attribute and golden dragon bloodline inheritance. Chi Fei Hong exclaimed. Earth attribute Chi had always been built on defense. The dragon bloodline's physical strength was even more domineering in the demonic beast world. Long Tsong, who was at the origin ancestor realm, was invincible in terms of defense, regardless of his offensive cultivation. The volcanic rock in Yi's eyes grew bigger and bigger. The scorching hot magma was like a crimson venomous snake as it rushed towards Yi, dripping with blood. Beyond the mud wall, Yi could see Long Tsong's cunning eyes, as though he had already announced his death. "So what? Everyone from the Long family should be killed." Yi shouted. As his voice fell, Yi's feet tapped lightly. Above him, in the midst of the flames, Yi's incomparably majestic flames lingered around his body. The desolate and ancient origin supreme technique suddenly erupted. Blazing fire sky, gathering palm. Thousands of flaming palm prints charged towards the sky like venomous snakes. Yi's palms flew as his lips curled into a cold smile. At this moment, Yi did not hold back at all. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous sonic booms rang out as the extreme, killing intent struck the wall of magma. Countless cracks quickly formed, but after the magma churned, it returned to its original state. After half a breath, the mud wall was about to surround him. In such a confined space, cultivators with low cultivation would definitely not be able to escape. His gaze trembled. Long Tsungyuan's ancestor realm strength already exceeded his own estimations. Yi's eyes immediately jumped, his gaze crimson. His hands violently slashed forward with heavenly star, shocking soul. Cloud shadow, treading frost. Chila. In the next second, the sky was filled with blue ice crystals. When the mud wall passed through Yi's body, the milky white gas produced by the collision of the ice crystals and magma let out a loud, sizzling sound. Long Tsong's aura quickly locked on his Yi's position. He saw Yi's solemn expression, his green robes fluttering slightly. His face was calm, but his eyes were filled with killing intent. "You actually have such ability." Long Tsong was extremely excited. Yi had just used the cloud shadow treading frost to escape from his fatal attack, giving him a huge surprise. Calm. Wonderful book house. Chapter 1925. The cloud shadow treading frost steps originated from the crimson water crystal. Yi stood in the air, and the surrounding ice crystals twisted like fairies. To be able to escape Long Tsong's fatal blow so easily, it was naturally an extraordinary martial technique. Yi was able to break through 7 levels consecutively from the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm in such a short time. This was unbelievable to outsiders. The divine inscriptions filled the air, and the overflowing radiance caused Su Yi's green robes to flutter in the wind. For some reason, he revealed a domineering and resolute aura that was proud of the heavens and the earth, and an indifferent arc appeared on his wild face. Some people are really stubborn. Do you really think that the Long family owns the Sky Barbarian continent? Cold light shot out from his eyes as he shook his hands forward. A surge of energy surrounded his body as though he was a deity. In the distance, a terrifying aura surged like waves in the sky. Looking at Su Yi, Longsong's eyes that did not carry any evilness instantly glowed with golden dragon light patterns. Leave behind your movement technique, and I can spare your life. Seems like the Long family doesn't just want the sky-suppressing stone. They even dare to take my things. Su Yi snorted. He waved his sleeves and smiled coldly with his eyes red. In the air, Longsong's aura turned serious when he heard the word sky-suppressing stone. What else do you know? The veins on his face popped out. Longsong gritted his teeth and said loudly, "Tell me." In the next second, Longsong's face twitched and a dragon roar was emitted from his body. The roar was like thunder and reverberated in the entire space. It was mixed with a bone-chilling intent. In the blink of an eye, the shadow of a golden dragon soared into the sky. It made people tremble. Su Yi had experienced the golden dragon's techniques from Han Wulong before. However, Han Wulong definitely couldn't comprehend the power and martial technique that Longsong was using. This is the gifted bloodline. Chi Fei Hong's eyes trembled as he clicked his tongue and praised the golden dragon's silhouette in the sky. Tisk TSK TSK. If it was any other person, then the peerless pressure was like the collapse of the heavens and the earth, causing the person's soul to be obliterated long ago, causing the person to lay prostrate on the ground while shivering. On the contrary, Su Yi felt an extremely carefree feeling. The incomparably violent and blazing energy around him continued to sweep through the sky, shaking the space and causing violent ripples to appear. What a pity! The golden dragon innate gift is in your hands, but you're using it to do such despicable things. All of a sudden, Su Yi's art of Immortal Supreme circulated rapidly, and a vast amount of energy dispelled the golden dragon's aura. His eyes flashed like lightning, and his entire body rushed into the golden dragon's space like a terrifying ghost. Su Yi, what qualifications do you have to criticize the Long family? You ain't. Longsong's eyes were gloomy and calm, but Su Yi could feel that Longsong's heart was trembling from the light in his eyes. No one had ever made Longsong so flustered. The complete suppression of the gifted bloodline made Long can smell a trace of danger. It was an insult to his self-esteem. Longsong's face started to turn ferocious, like a dragon's head. His entire body was covered with golden dragon patterns, and the anger in his heart had reached the point where he could no longer suppress it. He would not allow anyone to ignore his pressure, and he would not allow anyone to be above him. Rumble, go to hell. Suddenly, a series of golden figures flashed across the sky, and majestic dragon roars could be heard incessantly. Dragon claw marks that could be seen with the naked eye tore through the sky, and a terrifying aura was formed. The energy of heaven and earth on the top floor of the 10 Jade building was stirred into a huge whirlpool. Suddenly, the seemingly airtight golden dragon claw marks tore through countless energy in the sky, and the entire mountain, river, and lake collapsed into nothingness in an instant. Su Yi only glanced indifferently at the countless palm marks around him, and the golden dragon patterns on his body started to appear, but they were not that obvious under the divine radiance of the Origin Supreme technique. Su Yi did not want to expose his identity as the envoy of the divine dragon. He muttered, "You only have talent, but no brains. It's useless to keep you alive. Go to hell." Although Longsong's talent was terrifying, he was only 18 years old after all, and he had the mental state of a child. Su Yi did not think that he could get any useful information from Longsong's mouth. Since it was useless, he would fight to his heart's content. A shocking battle between a 19-year-old 9th-level Origin Emperor and an 18-year-old 4th-level Origin Ancestor, was about to erupt at the peak of the volcano. Bang! The golden dragon's blood essence kept churning in his blood, and Su Yi's eyes were golden red. The golden dragon's shadow was also emitting a similarly imposing aura, and a dazzling golden light filled his heart like a golden sun that could burn everything. Come on. Since the beginning of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, Su Yi had challenged many top experts of the Origin Ancestor realm with the strength of the Origin Void realm. At this moment, the battle between the true geniuses gave Su Yi a kind of battle pleasure that he had never felt before, and his violent attributes were all stimulated. Immediately, he broke through the encirclement of the golden dragon's pressure. Starlight circulated in his hand, and it was as if the universe had been reversed. He raised a long saber light and slashed it at Long Tsang. Roar! You want to fight me with this sacred artifact of yours? Dream on. Another dragon roar rang out, and the golden dragon's shadow behind Long Tsang instantly rose. Two incomparably sharp, giant claws merged into one in the air and forcibly caught Su Yi's saber light. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Even if Su Yi was not afraid of his golden dragon's might and could dodge the golden dragon's claws, with the physical strength of the dragon race, Su Yi would definitely not be able to hurt his body. Standing proudly in the air, Su Yi's eyes were filled with terrifying divine might. Some energy from the mysterious ball of light in his mind quickly filled the meridians of his four bodies like flowing water as he shouted loudly. Then let's give it a try. The corners of Long Tsang's mouth curled up slightly, and he immediately felt a heavy pressure on his shoulder that could collapse mountains and seas. The shadow surged, and the golden dragon's shadow instantly released its claws. The heavy saber light directly landed on his shoulder. In the next second, Long Tsang's entire body was brought high into the sky by an extremely terrifying force. In the end, he turned into a cannonball and smashed heavily onto the volcanic rock. Buzz! The sound was mighty, and the terrifying shockwave shook the entire volcano even more violently. The blazing sky was filled with flames, and the surging lava of the volcano kept flowing into the huge pit where Long Tsang was. Bang! Another dragon's roar rang out beside his ear. Su Yi's eyes were deep, and the light in front of him was hazy. A young man's clothes were torn, his hair was disheveled, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked extremely ferocious. The strength of a dragon race is indeed terrifying. The Iron Soulfish knew how terrifying Su Yi's move was. Using the Origin Supreme technique and the Starry Sky Soul together, even an ordinary Origin Ancestor would find it difficult to resist directly, let alone with the help of the mysterious ball of light. In front of him, Long Can's body was golden and suffused with a luster. Apart from his somewhat pathetic aura, he did not seem to have any injuries at all. Chapter 1926. The physical strength of the dragon race's legacy was terrifying. Su Yi frowned slightly. Long Tsang's eyes were sinister as he floated out of the deep pit. There were still remnants of fiery red magma on his body. TSK. After coming into contact with the air, the red magma emitted a scorching light, like a gemstone embedded on his body. I didn't expect this. Impossible. There's actually an ant like you in this world. Long Tsang roared, and the ripples in his eyes were frightening. Even Dugi Yumal wasn't a match for him, but Su Yi wasn't afraid of his golden dragon's might. He even forced him to this extent. Long Tsang's eyes emitted a scorching light. He was half shocked and half shocked. His face was extremely dark. Who are you? Long Tsang's eyes were burning, and his face was contorted. He was filled with murderous intent towards Su Yi in the air. Su Yi shook his head. He didn't want to waste any more time and took a deep breath. I'll ask you one last time. Why is the dragon family participating in the 10 Jade restaurant? Long Tsang's eyes were throbbing. He restrained his violent aura and asked softly, "It seems like you know too much." Long Tsang's eyes twitched. In the next second, a thick murderous aura exploded from him. He held a golden spear tightly in his right hand. Buzz, buzz! The golden spear with a silver tip was aimed at Su-yi. It was like the gaze of an evil dragon. Su-yi's heart skipped a beat. Bam! Then you can go accompany Duanmu Qingtian. In the sky, a deafening sound was heard. It was as if a huge dragon was rolling in the sky. Countless spear shadows tore through the sky and turned into countless golden dragon claws. The wind and clouds stirred and thunder rumbled. The sky was filled with terrifying dragon roars. More and more light pillars hit Su-yi's body. Bam! 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 Sonic booms were heard, and the dark spear shadows covered the entire sky. In an instant, they covered the sky as if it was the end of the world. There were only endless dragon roars in his ears, and the space around him was trembling nonstop. As the space vibrated, Su-yi sensed that Long Tsang's origin ancestor strength had been fully unleashed. The entire space had already become his territory. This is the spatial domain of an origin ancestor. In the sky, Long Tsang shouted at Su-yi like a deity. In my space, you'll never surpass me. Long Tsang's smile spread and gradually spread from a chuckle to a maniacal laughter. The whole world trembled, and a horrifying laughter echoed in the sky. The spear's shadows under his feet smashed the ground into nothingness. The mountains and rivers flowed in reverse, and the stars twisted. Bang, bang! An extremely small shadow rushed out of the encirclement. Long Tsang's pupils constricted. Before he could stop smiling, fear flashed across his eyes. Kill me. You're not qualified. In the light, Su-yi's indifferent face appeared. He curled his lips, and the heavenly star Soul Shock tore through the world, clashing against Long Tsang's golden spear. Rumble! Two dragon roars reverberated in the air, and dense waves of wind swept across. The vast aura made one's soul tremble. Boundless killing intent surged in the air. Wherever the shock wave passed, the space was like tofu. A huge crack appeared in the space, and the surrounding space ripples turned into ashes and scattered. This attack shook the world, and its power intimidated the world. The scorching waves of fire combined with the impressive wind and thunder. The surrounding solidified golden energy ripples spread in all directions, and a monstrous killing intent floated in the air. The two figures crashed onto the ground at the same time, and a blood-red stench filled the air. Su-yi's body slid a long distance in the air, creating a huge gully. Long Tsang, who had yet to regain his senses, simply could not imagine that Su-yi himself could actually produce such a huge force. His entire body exploded on the heavenly wind jade wall, and his face flushed red. A stream of blood spurted out. A small cloud of blood mist spurted out from Su-yi's mouth, and Long Tsang gasped. At this moment, he finally knew how terrifying Su-yi's cultivation was. Not only was his cultivation base heaven-defying, the 9th-level Origin Emperor was comparable to the Origin Ancestor realm. Even his physical body strength had long reached the Origin Ancestor realm. Impossible. Who exactly are you? Long Tsang struggled to stand up and shouted angrily as he looked at the green figure in front of him in shock. Until now, he still could not understand why Su-yi was not afraid of his golden dragon. The golden dragon seal was nothing to him. That was the golden dragon seal of an Origin Ancestor realm. GG. At this moment, Su-yi's eyes were filled with golden red flames. Su-yi's eyes were wide open, and the starry sky soul in his hand was dragged on the ground, making an ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against each other. The Emperor Sparrow's shadow spread its wings, and endless flames surrounded its body. The green robe behind it fluttered loudly, and a cold light shot out from its eyes. Listen, the Tian Incontinent and the Golden Dragon's inheritance are not exclusive to your Long family. Since you don't want to talk, you can go to hell. After killing Long Tsang, Su-yi would be able to investigate the secret of the 10 Jade restaurant and find the Duanmu Qingtian. Long Song sneered and entered a frenzied state. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His hair was disheveled, and he opened his blood-red eyes. Do you really think you are that great? Stupid ant. I will kill you. Draconis's words suddenly rang in Long Song's mind. His arrogant heart would never allow himself to be defeated by an ant that he looked down on. For the last time, golden light shone resplendently, and the sound waves rumbled like thunder in the sky. With a domineering, destructive aura, Long Song placed his golden spear in front of his chest. Golden light shone from the 9 heavens, and the golden river flowed. A huge dragon head spewed out a ferocious aura. Long Song closed his eyes, and golden light surged around him, and a domineering, destructive aura swept across the void. Long Song's origin ancestor realm strength had been fully unleashed, and it was extremely terrifying. Oh no, this is his final move. Iron Soulfish and Chi Feihong shouted at the same time. Such a commotion would bring a destructive disaster to the 10 Jade restaurant. Su Yi's heart rippled when he saw this innate ability that he had never seen before. So the dragon race had such a powerful move. Without any hesitation, the Yuan Qi in Su Yi's body surged. The arch sparrow phantom behind him flickered, and its resplendent eyes shot out flames that could shake the world. The arch sparrow fusion. Light surged in front of him, and ripples surged. The 2 ancient divine beast phantoms looked at each other across space and collided in an instant. Soaring dragon sky rush. Blood phoenix sky splitting slash. The golden dragon sword, and the arch sparrow destroyed the world. The destructive energy that seemed to have descended from the primordial era filled the air, and it was like a vacuum. All the sounds in the surroundings stopped instantly. In less than half a breath, there was another explosion. A deafening explosion surged out from the 2 resplendent beams of light. Ayo, ayo, ayo. At this moment, the entire top floor of the 10 Jade restaurant had collapsed. Su Yi had also lost control of the mysterious ball of light. When the golden lightning struck Su Yi's chest, Su Yi had subconsciously closed his eyes. Chapter 1927. The ferocious wind and lightning surged rapidly, and the entire world seemed to be on the verge of collapse. When Su Yi closed his eyes, he had already lost control of the mysterious ball of light. This time, he had used up all his energy and soul energy. Hoo-ha! It was as if he was the only one left in the world. The sound of his breathing and heartbeat grew louder and louder, and the voices of the iron soulfish and Chi Feihong rang in his ears. Su Yi, wake up! Wake up! Chi Feihong's eyes were solemn as he shouted loudly in the mysterious space. Hang in there, the iron soulfish shouted, his eyes filled with shock and fear. As Su Yi's consciousness faded, the mysterious ball of light's energy instantly invaded his body and surged through his meridians. Immediately, the iron soulfish and Chi Feihong's souls trembled, and they fell into a deep sleep together with Su Yi. The entire world disappeared into nothingness in an instant, as if the end of the world had arrived. Am I going to die? Su Yi asked in his heart as he laughed bitterly. In a daze, a round object flew out from the space bag in front of Su Yi's chest and stood in front of Su Yi to protect him. It shone with a strange light, and a warm light enveloped his entire body. The mysterious divine light quickly enveloped Su Yi, and the energy of heaven and earth was quickly drawn in. At the same time, Long Song, who had been sent flying, had already disappeared without a trace. Clouds of fire lingered in the sky. The desert was eroded, the rivers flowed in reverse, and the mountains collapsed. Crack! A huge crack appeared on the heavenly wind jade wall, and it quickly covered the entire stone wall like a spiderweb. Following that, a huge arc of light covered the entire jade wall. Ooh! As the light's circle appeared, a cold, ancient energy spread out and pulled Su Yi into it. Bam! After Su Yi entered, a destructive energy that was like the radiant sun was born from high up in the sky. It directly pierced through the heavenly wind jade wall, splitting it into two and collapsing to the ground. The heavenly wind jade annulus instantly produced a powerful suction force. The spatial ripples between heaven and earth were like an invisible giant hand that pushed everyone outwards. On the second floor of the 10 Jade building, Su Chun and Lan Ran Lian were already impatient. The heaven wind jade annulus flickering light was enough to make the three of them shudder in fear. The heavenly wind jade annulus emitted an overwhelming pressure, imperceptibly pressuring the three of them. A large amount of aura flowed, and the spatial ripples around the heavenly wind jade annulus had already collapsed. Su Chen's eyes flashed as he shouted, "The battle between Su Yi and Long Tsang is so intense." Lan Xiaolian didn't say a word, but her beautiful face was cold. Du Guillemot clenched his slender fingers tightly, and his crystal blue eyes fluctuated. He was very clear about Long Tsang's strength. A young Yuanzong's strength was enough to be described as terrifying. If everything went smoothly, Long Tsang would become the owner of the 10 Jade building. Within a year, the 10 Jade building would belong to the Long family. Su Yi, you have to hold on. Du Guillemot's beautiful face was pale, and her expression was grave. Low muffled sounds constantly came from the heavenly wind jade annulus, and the entire void became restless due to the changes in the heavenly wind jade annulus. Bam! The overwhelming aura stopped in an instant, and the three of them had a change in expression. Su Chun shouted, "It's over." Looking at the glowing jade disc before them, the three of them felt their hair stand on end at the same time. "Let's go in and take a look." Su Chun, who couldn't hold it in any longer, summoned his lightning to protect his body. Lan Xiaolian and Du Guillemot followed behind him as they headed towards the heavenly wind jade annulus. Before they got close, a huge pitch-black crack burst out from the heavenly wind jade annulus like a storm. In the depths of the void, the wind and clouds changed color, and the wind and thunder roared. The sound of the air stirred up was like the chanting of a demon god, desolate and desolate. It cracked. The heavenly wind jade annulus cracked. Retreat. Blue light flashed in Du Guillemot's eyes, and the sharp sword Qi wrapped around the arms of Su Chun and Lan Xiaolian as they retreated rapidly. The violent impact was like an erupting volcano, and the terrifying aura rushed out, sending the three of them flying thousands of meters away. They landed heavily on the ground, and the destructive aura felt like it was going to split them in half. The vast space distorted and collapsed wherever it passed. The void trembled, and the three of them vomited blood before they could react. They fainted. Bam, bam, bam. Third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer, sixth layer. The entire space was filled with destructive aura at the same time. The dazzling energy light rushed out of the void vortex and pierced through. Xiahong House, Jun Hao Yin, Yun Liang, Yuchi Changfeng, and Tyrant Si Santong were all sent flying out like kites with broken strings. At this instant, the void collapsed completely. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled as the wind and lightning flashed. Boundless and terrifying energy surged from all directions, vast and mighty. Wherever the aura passed, the heavenly might was vast and mighty, surging endlessly. Bang! All the things in the heavenly wind 10J pavilion were expelled in an instant under the unparalleled movement of the void, demon subduing sect, great demon mountain range. The aura in the distance surged, and the light of the 10 Jade pavilion was faintly discernible. This was already the 7th day since the 10 of them entered the 10 Jade pavilion. As usual, after the people entered the 10 Jade pavilion, the others would basically disperse. But this time, there was a chaotic battle to determine the ranking. The top sects, including the Saint Venerables, were all waiting in the same place, trying to peek at the ranking of their disciples. Everyone stared at the heavenly wind jade annulus and the changes in the ranking. On the mountain peak, the shadows of the pavilions overlapped, and the first 5 layers of the 10 jade pavilion shone, giving people endless fanciful thoughts. And the first names to disappear from the heavenly wind jade annulus were Yuchi Changfeng and Tyrant Si Santong. Where's my son's name? Why is it missing? The Sky Dragon sect was crowded, and they began to discuss and point at the names on the heavenly wind jade annulus. Why is the great saint's name missing? With a gloomy face, the Holy Fire Elder glanced at the excited Tyrant Si Long Eagle with suspicion. The Saint Venerables also felt strange, and his gaze stopped on Su Yi's and Xiahong House's names. Then, he immediately regained his indifferent expression. Looks like Su Yi is still climbing up. Merciless West's face was red, and she pulled Wu Chang Fairy's clothes excitedly. Shuchen, Lan Linglian, and Duga Yuma are cultivating on the same level. Some of the top sects who had not left and were waiting to watch the show were amazed. The Ten Jade Pavilion had always had one person per level, but there was no rule that said that they could not share. At the same time, Dugu Cheng, Yin Mietian, and Yi Yi's eyes gathered at one point, and at the same time, they showed obscure and complicated expressions. On the high platform, Draconis was still arrogant, and there was a trace of pride in his cold eyes as he said in a deep voice, "The Yin family is a little low-key this time." Yin Zhongli's old eyes narrowed, and his stiff lips twitched slightly. He looked at Draconis and said, "The Yin family has always been low-key." Chapter 1928. As if he was angry, Yin Zhongli turned his head to the side and met Su Wan'er's eyes. Su Wan'er's body immediately trembled like a leaf. She lowered her beautiful eyelashes in panic. She knew what Yin Zhongli meant by looking at her. If she was here, she would definitely be able to suppress all the heroes. Su Wan'er pursed her lips tightly, and her eyes were filled with concern. She rubbed the corner of her clothes tightly and didn't dare to look at Yin Zhongli. Yin Zhongli gripped the handle tightly, and his eyes glowed. Then, he sighed heavily, and his eyes were filled with sorrow and sorrow. Boom! At this moment, a loud explosion resounded in the sky. The sky changed color, and the mountain in the distance quickly turned into ripples. Above the great Demon Mountain range, crazy clouds and lightning began to form. The wind was strong, and the endless pressure of space suppressed the demonic chi in the entire Great Demon Mountain range. Between the sky and the mountain, a huge light beam seemed to be connected. The void shattered inch by inch, and the energy collided with each other. Above the strange and mysterious void, monstrous energy spread rapidly like an arc of light enveloping the sky. In an instant, the terrifying energy spread and rippled violently. The entire void began to distort. The faces of the martial artists present changed as they stared at the changes in the Ten Jade building. Bahai Long Eagle roared, "What's wrong? What's going on?" As soon as his voice fell, an even more violent and desolate aura surged out from the arc of light. The void was in chaos, and the whole world was on the verge of collapse. The aura of destruction swept across the sky. Some of the martial artists with lower cultivation quickly set up a Yuan Qi defense and even flew down mountain. In a short moment, only the 5 major families, Yutian Palace, Boang Sect, and Sky Dragon Sect were left. Duanmu Xiaoman frowned, and her snow-white face froze. At this moment, even the powerful Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flickered and his aura collapsed as the energy of heaven and earth stirred. Palace Master Long Pashan and the other elders were shocked beyond words. When they glanced at Duanmu Xiaoman, they were immediately interrupted by Guyue. Guyue gestured for them to keep quiet and shook his head slightly. Immediately, all the elders fell silent, cold sweat dripping from their hearts. The sudden change in the Ten Jade building meant that something extremely important must have happened inside. It had only been 7 days, and the ownership of each floor had not been decided yet. What could have happened? The Holy Senior was confused. Cold sweat dripped down her cheeks, and her eyes were trembling. She immediately gave the order to the Holy Flame Elder. "Disciples of the Sacred Mountain, heed my command." The group of Holy Mountain disciples, including Lu Ruashi, answered anxiously. No matter what happens, other than me, no one is allowed to enter the 10 Jade Pavilion. The Lord's breath was heavy, and his unprecedentedly serious attitude made everyone's heart skip a beat. Shunghor raised his dry eyelids and wanted to argue, but the Lord flicked his sleeves and turned to look at the 10 Jade restaurant. Boom! Boom! The loud noises continued. Violent sonic booms resounded in the void. Above the void, power was unleashed. Everywhere the pitch-black light cracks went, there was a murderous aura. The space was turned into ashes and dissipated. On the aristocratic family battle platform, the aristocratic families led by Draconis had already risen to the sky. 5 huge figures rippled in the air. Draconis's eyes were burning, and his gaze suddenly became extremely sinister. At his command, a dragon's roar reverberated through the wilderness. Disciples of the Long family, go and check. The Myriad Sword Alliance, Thunder Fire's Sacred Hall, Sky Sea City, and Ancient Cloud Immortal Sect all issued thunderous commands at the same time. Disciples of the Sword Alliance, go and check. Disciples of the Thunder Fire's Sacred Hall, go and check. Disciples of the Ocean City, go and check. Disciples of the Yin family, go and check. The 4 voices were extremely powerful, and the void trembled. The airflow surged, and the wind and thunder rumbled. Dozens of figures, all of whom were at the Origin Ancestor realm, shot towards the great Demon Mountain range like shooting stars. Swoosh! Then, a boundless sword chi that was terrifying to the extreme suddenly streaked across the sky and passed over the heads of the aristocratic families. Dugu Chung turned pale with fright and shouted in the wild wind. Elder Dugu, don't go. The skinny figure was extremely firm in the air. The fierce and sharp sword chi tore through the chaotic space and headed toward the great Demon Mountain range. Dugu Chung was like an ant on a hot pan. He was extremely anxious. He glanced at the Long family and whispered, Dragon God, if you don't go and check now, where you going to wait? Draconis seemed to be deep in thought. His solemn face revealed a trace of ruthlessness. He did not speak for a long time, as if he was thinking about something. Dragon God, Long Song is also inside. Don't you care about it? Draconis's firm eyebrows suddenly twitched. His murderous aura was awe-inspiring as he looked coldly at Dugu Chung. Is the 10 Jade building a place where you can enter as you wish? Who can take responsibility for anything that happens inside? Hearing this, Yin Zhongli laughed dryly. His snow-white aura was like a cloud of smoke that pushed away the space ripples in front of him. He was full of displeasure and sarcasm. Long Song is a genius. Of course, he'll be fine. The other disciples of the aristocratic families are not comparable to him. Yin Liang is inside. I can't leave him to die. Yes. Yi and Yin Mietian shouted at the same time. Their expressions were complicated, and, at the same time, their faces were pale because of anxiety. At this moment, the golden and blue vortexes behind them swept across the sky again and rushed into the illusory figures like golden rainbows. The 2 girls, Duanmu and the Lord, can't sit still anymore. Yin Zhongli's long beard moved slightly, and his whole body suddenly burst out with light. Yin Mietian, Dugu Chung, and Yi shouted at the same time, We want to go too. Boom. The 3 people who had gone before were like bean shadows that were submerged under the huge 10 Jade building like dust. Wind and thunder swept across, and the heavenly might was awe-inspiring. Overwhelming pressure and thunder struck down, and there were ferocious flames everywhere. Huge cracks were starting to form on the mountain. The demons subduing sect below was already in a mess. The Scarlet Stellar Leopard and Qi Dongjue were busy giving out orders. They were so busy that they couldn't care less about the situation in the 10 Jade restaurant. Everyone from the demons subduing sect, go to the square and help. This is a disaster for the sect. Why? Why is this Tian phone competition being held? I don't want to stay here. I want to go home. Countless remaining martial artists were shocked, and their eyes were filled with excitement and fear. Their mouths were wide open, and they were all like ants in front of the heavenly might. Whoosh! Another sharp sword chi flashed across the sky, and the horrifying shockwave was split into two. A short figure with terrifying energy dashed directly towards the great demon mountain range. Bang! Bang! For the five figures appeared in front of him, and their demonic aura filled the air. Their ferocious aura was terrifying. They were Merciless West, Impermanence Fairy, the Green Emperor, and the Yin-Yang twins. Get out of the way. Suruga frowned coldly. His fingers were like a sword, and the sharp edge of the sword could cut a god in half in the next second. Chapter 1929. Merciless West opened her arms slightly, while Impermanence Fairy frowned. Both of them were at the first level of Origin Ancestor Realm, and there were three Supremes of the Demon Clan behind them. I've long heard of Sword Yama's name, Merciless West said to Suruga calmly. Her cultivation had skyrocketed, and she looked refreshed and energetic. Suruga frowned slightly. Back at the Sacred Martial Assembly, the five of them had sworn brotherhood, and Sword Yama's name was even more well-known. Get out of the way. Su-E is still inside. Don't stop me from saving him. Suruga's tone softened, and she frowned and said sternly. The Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang two nether knelt down at the same time and bowed to Suruga. Suruga waved his sleeves, and a vast pressure blew the three of them up. Instantly, the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang two nether were shocked, and they said in a low voice, Sir, you can't go in. Impermanence Fairy also flew to Suruga's side, and a hint of urgency flashed across her graceful face as she said urgently, Elder Su. Before Su-E went in, he specifically said that if anything happens, you are not to be allowed in. Impermanence Fairy pointed to the four people behind her and said calmly, We also wanted to go in and save Su-E, but Palace Master Duanmu stopped us. She's already gone in. It's better for us to stay here than go in. Merciless West looked down at the tragic scene of the demons subduing sect, and her eyes flashed with extreme pain and reluctance. If she had known that the demons subduing sect had suffered such a huge loss, she would have clapped and cheered. But now that the demons subduing sect was part of the Bawang sect, how could she let it suffer so easily? With a profound look in her eyes, Impermanence Fairy lowered her voice and then said a few words beside Su Kwanga. What? Suruga's eyes were filled with shock, and her eyes widened in disbelief. Then she laughed maniacally, and her laughter shook the sky and echoed in the 9 heavens. Then can you just wait here and do nothing? Suruga asked in reply, standing with his hands behind his back. His gaze was sharp, and the depths of his eyes were filled with worry for Su-E, who was in the 10 Jade Pavilion. Shi Wuching, Wuchang Fairy, and the Green Emperor looked at each other and smiled faintly. Their eyes flickered as they spoke in unison. We believe in him. Immediately, Suruga nodded heavily. His dim yellow eyes surged with long-lost lofty sentiments and aspirations as he shouted angrily. Fine, then I will wait here for the return of my disciple Su-E. Yes, Your Honor. As the master of the Bawang sect leader, Suruga's status was naturally higher than the sect leaders. The Green Emperor and the others were incomparably respectful. His mighty aura shook the heavens, and a hot-blooded and fiery atmosphere filled the air. Everyone from the Gate of Demon subduing raised their heads. Chi Jiuzhen's eyes were bloodshot as he followed suit and spoke in a loud voice. I also believe in Su. In an instant, everyone from the Gate of Demon subduing saw that their grand senior sister had already sided with Su-E, and the grief of the calamity seemed to have eased a little. How good would it be if Su-E was our grand senior brother? Yeah, even senior sister Jiuzhen hopes that Su-E will return. Actually, other than being a little arrogant, Su-E is not an exaggeration to call him a top genius. Look at the Bawang sect. Every single one of them is an expert, and they are united as one. Our Gate of Demons subduing hasn't been so united in a long time. Below the stage, the terrifying aura was still reverberating. Chi Dongjue and the Scarlet Stellar Leopard's eyes trembled. Looking at the heavily damaged sect, the the scarlet stellar leopard was somewhat relieved. Elder Dongjue, I am anxious about the calamity of the sect, but I am not sad. Why is that? Chi Dongjue nodded as well. Looking at the lofty sentiments of the Bawang sect members, his heart was instantly filled with lofty sentiments. Without destruction, there can be no construction. Clean up and wait for the return of the young sect leader and old sect leader. Everyone's eyes shot towards the heavenly wind, Jade Annulus. At this moment, the heavenly wind, Jade Annulus, had already been smashed into pieces. Everyone's hearts palpitated as they looked towards the 10 Jade Pavilion. Above the void, a skinny figure shot out from the 10 Jade Pavilion like an arrow. He was as fast as lightning, and the light was dazzling. When he stopped in front of everyone's eyes, Dugu Chung had already rushed to the side of the person and took the delicate body in his hands. Elder Dugu, you are injured. Are you all right? Dugu Cheng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he roared. Dugu Xie's withered hand brushed Dugu Yuma's hair. His eyes were filled with love and kindness, following which he spat out another mouthful of blood. Dugu Yuma lay on the ground as though she was asleep. The sharp sword chi around her was no longer present. Her hair danced in the wind, and her face was slightly pale, adding to her delicate beauty. Dugu Xie, what's going on inside? Draconis roared loudly. His tall and straight figure carried an invisible domineering aura, and his loose robe fluttered in the wind. Dugu Xie's mouth was full of blood, and his face was pale. His eyes were sunken, and he looked like he was about to die. Everyone suddenly realized that Dugu Xie was not far from death. How can an expert at the pinnacle of Yuan realm be so seriously injured? Yi gasped and looked puzzled. Immediately, Yin Mietian, Yi Yi, and Yun Zhongli quickly gathered around Dugu Xie. Yin Mietian's soul collapsed on Dugu Xie's body. Alas! Yin Mietian sighed heavily and then stepped aside. Dugu Cheng's long and narrow eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness. Can any of you save Elder Dugu? Who can save him? Yin Zhongli pondered for a moment, and then transferred the extremely soft primordial qi into Dugu Xie's body. The primordial qi fluctuated rapidly. Boom! After a while, Yin Zhongli withdrew the primordial qi. He shook his head and looked at Dugu Xie respectfully. Why are you doing this? Dugu Xie. Draconis and the others looked at Yin Zhongli at the same time. Dugu Xie, who was lying on the ground, did not have much vitality left, and said with a bitter smile, I have repaid the child's debt. Everyone's expression turned serious when they heard this. When they looked at Dugu Xie again, they couldn't close their eyes for a long time as they stared in Long Yang's direction. Everyone immediately understood. Yin Mietian and Dugu Chung frowned at the same time, and their eyes were filled with anger. Of course, this was the Long family's matter. Back then, the 5 aristocratic families had killed countless villagers in order to find the heaven-suppressing golden stone. Ever since Dugu Xie took in Dugu Yuma, he had never asked about the heavenly barbarian race. Everyone had taken in an outstanding disciple at that time, and they did not expect to destroy themselves because of what happened back then. So this child is the one from back then? He finally could not help murmuring in a low voice. A trace of pain welled up in her heart. Dugu Cheng's hands trembled as he closed Dugu Xie's eyes. The Heavenly Wind ranking station had lost a Yuan domain realm expert, and this was a huge disaster for the aristocratic families. Let's go and get the children. Yun Zhongli sighed and looked at the horizon. At this moment, a sword path made of primordial qi extended out from the light. Everyone knew that this path was specially opened by Dugu Xie for Dugu Yuma. The few people who were expelled were also caught by the experts who were sent to investigate and slowly floated down to the sky. Hua hua hua. The primordial qi surged, and the faces of Dugu Chung and the others turned gloomy. As they were about to fly to the horizon, Draconis said coldly behind them, I'll say this first. Whoever dares to enter the 10 Jade Pavilion will be killed without mercy. Chapter 1930. The faces of the four families darkened at the same time. The roar of a dragon shook the sky. Draconis's words did not seem to be a lie. Oomph. Yin only snorted and turned into a cloud of smoke. When he looked again, he had already arrived in front of the 10 Jade building. Yin Yetian and the others also broke through the sky and easily caught the light that was slowly thrown out of the 10 Jade building. After Dugu Yuma came out, Su Chun and Lombalian were also thrown out. The families hurriedly caught their disciples and returned to where Dugu Xia was. The Yuan Qi in their bodies is extremely chaotic, and they are all seriously injured. It will take a long time for them to recuperate. Yi's face was heavy and her voice trembled slightly. Without saying anything, Yin Mietian and Yun Zhongli began to treat Su Chun and Yun Liang's injuries. Their faces were ashen and they did not say a word. Let's talk after they wake up. As for other things, let's not talk about it for now. Dugu Cheng's narrow eyes had a trace of light as he looked at Draconis's back thoughtfully. The Long family's people still haven't come out. If they find anything inside, our 3 families must not sit still and wait for death. Dugu Cheng calmed his excitement and took a deep breath. He ordered people to carry Dugu Xia's body away and whispered through Yuan Qi. Hearing this, Yin Mietian, who was treating Su Chen's injuries, moved his body and a trace of fluctuation appeared in his eyes. Yi, who was standing to the side, paused her Yuan Qi and nodded imperceptibly at the same time. Tyrannical Si Santong and Yuchi Changfeng were also found by the Sky Dragon sect and Glory sect. Jun Hao Yin was surrounded by several elders. In an instant, above the great Demon Mountain range, countless terrifying Yuan Qi lights flashed and danced between heaven and earth. 10 elders erupted their auras at the same time to protect Jun Hao Yin's heart and veins and urgently heal him. Lu Ruashi rushed to the side of Yutian Palace in a panic. Guyue's face was solemn, his white beard fluttering in the wind. Ninth Holy Maiden, don't worry. Palace Master has already gone in. Su, you will be fine. A ripple appeared in Guyue's dry eyes. Lu Ruashi was deeply in love with Su Yi, and her heart was completely devoted to Su Yi. In such a situation, Guyue could only comfort her. Lu Ruashi's eyes trembled, and the mist in her eyes rippled. Her Saint Ruler Chief flickered as the terrifying aura burst forth. Lu Ruashi nodded solemnly as a warm hand covered her shoulder. Impermanence Fairy was smiling warmly at Lu Ruashi. In an instant, everyone's hearts were tangled together because of Su Yi. Sister-in-law, don't worry. Su, you will go to the Holy Mountain to marry you later. When the time comes, I will be your witness. Yes, Master is blessed. With Palace Master Duamu around, he will definitely return safely. The Green Emperor's voice was gentle, but it was filled with tenacious confidence. Lu Ruashi's tears turned into a smile. A charming look flashed across her pale face, and the tense atmosphere dissipated a little. Boom! At this moment, the experts of the Long family had returned. There were more than 10 of them, but only a few returned. Where's my son, Long Song? Draconis shouted. His deep voice swept through the wind and waves, and a monstrous golden dragon's aura covered the sky. A severely injured Long family cultivator carried a young man to Draconis' side and said with a cold expression, Dragon God, the young palace master is here. Everyone's eyes shot to the young man on his back. Draconis spread his arms behind him, and his eyes flickered with a red light like the sun. Golden dragon's aura rolled all over his body like dragon scales. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the surroundings, and a wildly dancing waterfall hit Long Song. The air was oppressive for no reason, and the whimpering sound of wind and thunder was still strong. Everyone held their breath and looked at Draconis nervously. Their hearts were in a mess, and they could welcome disaster at any time. Roar! Suddenly, Draconis was like a demon that had awakened. The whole world was filled with unparalleled killing intent and evil spirit. Dazzling golden red light soared into the sky, and a demonic aura that was more powerful than the dragon's aura reached the world. The deafening dragon's aura reverberated in everyone's eardrums, and many young cultivators were sent flying backward with blood spurting out of their mouths. The dragon's aura swept across the sky, and the family heads of the 4 great families looked solemn. They formed hand seals and set up a strong vital chi defense, but they could still hear the continuous shattering sound. "Draconis, what are you doing?" Yun Zhongli shouted. Long Xiang's sudden burst of aura was definitely not a coincidence. Long Xiang, whose heart was always as calm as the sea and as calm as an ancient well, was acting like this because of something. Draconis was really angry. Far away, the world shook, and the shadow of the golden dragon descended to the world again. Scarlet blood chi poured out from the dragon scales, as if blood had filled the sky. This murderous aura undoubtedly showed Draconis' super strength. In an instant, the sky changed color, and thick dark clouds covered the whole world. "Retreat!" Yin Mietian shouted. The 4 great families, the Holy Mountain, and the Sky Dragon sect responded. Dozens of people turned into light shadows and retreated thousands of meters before they could suppress the fear in their hearts. Rumble. After a while, the energy of heaven and earth around Draconis became more and more intense, and the whole world was oppressed. Draconis looked back at everyone, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. The dragon roar resounded in the sky. "Whoever dares to enter the 10 Jade Tower will be going against me, Draconis." TSK. Everyone's expression changed. Yun Zhongli's face darkened, and the people of the other families were also shocked. In an instant, everyone was stunned. "Return to the palace quickly. If you can't save the young palace master, you will die." Draconis bent his fingers into a claw, and golden light spread out from the void. A golden dragon passage appeared in front of the 10 Jade Tower and stabilized Dugu, Xie's sword chi passage. In a flash, Draconis turned into golden light and disappeared. Bang! Bang! The sound of wind and thunder still resounded in the ruined world. Clanging sounds filled the air, and the supreme pressure was mysterious and terrifying. Just as the expert of the Long family was about to carry Long Tsang on his back, Yin Zhongli appeared in front of him like a ghost and channeled his vital chi into Long Tsang's body. In the next second, Yin Zhongli returned to the place where the 4 great families were, and his eyes were full of shock. "What happened? Is Draconis crazy?" Yin Mietian shouted in a low voice. The vital chi in his hand was still flowing, and the surging flames swept out. The expert from the Dragon Clan glanced at the aristocratic clan with a strange look, completely unaware of what had just happened. He turned into his dragon form and disappeared. Yin Zhongli was stunned for a long time. After watching the expert disappear into the sky, he sighed softly. Chapter 1931. Crippled, what a pity! Yin Zhongli sighed. His expression was extremely sad. Yin Yetian, Yi, Dugu Cheng, Shenghua, and dozens of people from the Imperial Celestial Palace stared at the direction Draconis went at the same time. At this moment, everyone present was drenched in cold sweat. A legendary, unrivaled young man in the Sky Barbarian realm had died, just like that. What exactly happened inside? Yi's eyes that were always calm and indifferent were now filled with shock. Yin Zhongli let out a miserable laugh and let out a long sigh. It seemed like he had finally spat out all the resentment he had accumulated for a long time. Then, he turned around and walked towards Su-Wan. "You should go back first. It's not safe here." Su-Wan-Er's eyes were filled with tears. The pearls at the corners of her eyes moved with the wind. She gently shook her head and spoke in a trembling voice. "I'm not going back. You promised me that you would let me see Su-Yi." Hearing Su-Yi's name, everyone's gaze immediately gathered on Su-Wan-Er. This mysterious girl had been following behind Yin Zhongli all this time. She didn't say a word and didn't do anything. Yet the first thing she said was actually related to Su-Yi. "Don't tell me you haven't seen him yet. Isn't that enough?" Yin Zhongli had already expected what Su-Wan-Er wanted to say, so he shouted in a deep voice. "No, I didn't even say a word to big brother Su-Yi." Big brother? Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy were puzzled. When did Su Yi have a big brother? Lu Ruashi's body trembled slightly. The girl in front of her was about 15 or 16 years old. She was pretty and charming, and there was a beauty hidden under the veil. However, the more she looked at her, the more familiar she felt. She actually couldn't remember where she had seen her before. You are? Lu Ruashi frowned slightly and extended her hand towards Su Wan-er. You are Sister Ruashi, right? I am Su Wan-er. I was at the Su family that day at the Undying Sect in Barbarian City. Lu Ruashi's body unconsciously leaned forward as a trace of pleasant surprise and intimacy flashed across her beautiful face. The Barbarian City was small to begin with. Everyone in the Barbarian City knew that Su Yi had picked up a sister from the outside. Who would have thought that she was from the Yun family, one of the 5 ancient aristocratic families in the Tianyin continent? Su Wan-er kept nodding as she pursed her lips. The moment her veil floated down, everyone was shocked. The 7th level of the Origin Emperor realm made Su Wan-er's budding face even more beautiful and tender. Her eyes were clear like the stars, cold like the moon, and her smile was like spring. Soft sighs of admiration surged into the eyes of all the cultivators present. Su Wan-er's beauty had instantly shocked the hearts of everyone present. Your little sister, Wan-er? I've heard Song Wuqiu and the others mention you before. Lu Ruashi walked closer to Su Wan-er. To be able to meet someone from her hometown in such a situation, her heart was filled with endless sorrow. Enough! Yin Zhongli shouted. His eyes were filled with radiance as an extremely strong wave of energy surged out from the space and hit Lu Ruashi directly. Saintus, be careful. A few elders, including Gyue and Elder Shenghua, shouted at the same time. As they pushed their hands forward, more than 10 streams of energy rushed out. The mist was ethereal, but it was mixed with an extremely surging energy of heaven and earth. Yun Zhongli's palms trembled slightly, and Gyue, the inner Yuan ancestor realm elders, as well as Elder Shenghua, who was at the Yuan domain realm, all retreated. Bang! Yin Zhongli quickly withdrew his palm and said coldly, Su Wan-er is not Su Wan-er. She's not Su Wan-er. From now on, she's a child of the Yin family. Yin Wan, Su Yi is not qualified to acknowledge Wan-er as his sister. The crystal-clear energy of heaven and earth was cold and merciless. Yin Yetian, Dugu Cheng, and the others frowned and sighed softly at the astonished crowd. Old Monster Yin is still that Old Monster Yin after all. This girl is actually Old Monster Yin's daughter. Dugu Cheng curled his lips and looked straight at the illusory image of the 10 Jade building. Father! Yin Wan-er was forcibly pulled back by the Yin family's experts and brought into the sky. Her eyes were full of sadness, and her pale lips were trembling as she cried out in a delicate voice. Yin Zhongli's back was facing Yin Wan-er. His head was lowered, and his old body was trembling slightly. Then, he made a gesture to return. In an instant, a faint mist shrouded the mountains and rivers, and a layer of wind and waves appeared in the great Demon Mountain range. When the white light dissipated, an ethereal shout came from afar, and the Yin family members disappeared into the sky. Lu Ruashi's eyes were filled with anger, and a trace of arrogance flashed in her eyes. She circulated her saint ruler chi and stared at Yin Zhongli. Patriarch Yin, why did you restrict Sister Wan-er's freedom? You have no right to interfere in the affairs of the Yun family. Yin Zhongli seemed to have transferred all his anger to Lu Ruashi. Blazing smoke rose from his body, and his gaze was extremely gloomy. Boom! Guyu, Long Pasan, and Shi Wuqing moved together and forcibly brought Lu Ruashi back. Shenghua said with a solemn expression, Don't forget that you are the 9th saintess of the sacred mountain. Lu Ruashi seemed to have come back to her senses. She clenched her teeth and turned her head away without saying a word. After the experts of the Yun and Long families left the Sacred Hall, Ocean City, and Dao Alliance also sent experts to bring Su Chun and the others back to the Yun family's territory. Yin Mietian approached Yun Zhongli, shook his head, and whispered, Long Tsang, that brat really died in the hands of Su Yi. The dragon god is coming for revenge, and that brat has to die. The result was obvious. Su Yi was the only one who didn't come out, and Su Chun and the others who didn't reach the first floor were at most seriously injured. Long Tsang, who fought head-on with Su Yi, ended up like this. His life was uncertain, and the dragon god was coming for revenge. Do you really think he went for revenge? Yin Zhongli raised his eyelids and looked at Yin Mietian mockingly. Du Guqing's sharp voice came from behind, and it made people feel uncomfortable. Is it reasonable to rush for revenge when his son's life is uncertain? Moreover, there are two troublesome women in there. There must be something more important than his son's life in there. The four people blurted out. The eyes of the people from the four families trembled at the same time. Yin Zhongli's lips trembled as he said, Draconis has been cultivating for so many years, and I'm afraid he has been waiting for this day. Did that move of his just now break through to that legendary realm? He asked Yin Zhongli with a doubtful expression. No, definitely not. If he did, why would he need to come here to verify if the 10 Jade Pavilion is a spatial passage? Du Guqing nodded with a solemn look in his eyes, and a cold aura enveloped his body. Even if he is at the Yuan Sky Realm, the four of us are no match for him. Old Yun, your cultivation is the highest. What do you think? Yin Mietian said helplessly. After a moment of silence, Yin Zhongli raised his head and closed his eyes. Draconis' power was still lingering in the sky. Let's wait and see. No matter what the result is, Draconis will definitely give us an explanation when he comes out. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone looked at the 10 Jade Pavilion in the sky again. The 10 Jade Pavilion shadow was about to disappear. Duanmu Xiaoman, the Lord, and Draconis were all there, and there was one more important person in there. Yin Zhongli's back was facing everyone, and his eyes were solemn. Su, what did you find in there? Chapter 1932. Heaven and earth were silent, and a terrifying airflow was swirling in the sky. The entire 10 Jade restaurant was filled with desolate ancient aura, and the entire place was connected. Under the ancient aura, everything seemed so small, and the terrifying and scorching aura filled the air. Is this the 10 Jade restaurant? The Lord's body trembled as he looked at the changes in heaven and earth. The chaotic energy of heaven and earth was stirred up in the space. A huge torrent swept across the sky, and the devouring power extended from the sky to the ground. The flames, the lake, and the land all turned into tornadoes and rushed towards the sky. Everything seemed to be pulled in by an incomparably huge suction force, and everything could be devoured cleanly. Duanmu Xiaoman looked solemn, and the ice crystals around her were condensed. A vast aura was released from her body, and she raised her hand and pointed at the tornadoes in the sky. The rules of space here are being reconstructed. Everything here will be wiped out after the tornadoes stop. The Lord frowned and said in a low voice, Is Su Yi also in the tornadoes? Where is Su Yi? A loud shout was heard from the sky, far behind them, and a terrifying dragon's roar resounded in heaven and earth. It was as if a golden light was rushing towards them, and the lifelike golden light from the dragon's scales shocked heaven and earth. The chaotic heaven and earth became even more chaotic, and the enormous energy of heaven and earth was like the mountains and seas. The Lord's face turned red, and his eyes trembled slightly. It's Draconis. He's in, the Lord exclaimed. Countless rays of light suddenly appeared in the surrounding mountains, and the space fluctuated, and a large area of space was distorted. It would be strange if he didn't come in. Duanmu Xiaoman didn't even turn her head. Her gaze was fixated on the whoosh sound of the tornado erupting from the horizon. All of a sudden, the entire heaven and earth seemed to be trembling, and an oppressive aura spread across the sky, making people's souls tremble. Roar! The golden dragon descended, and the majestic aura of the golden dragon was like a giant sword across the space barrier, cutting off heaven and earth. Instantly, The surrounding space rippled, and an astonishing ancient aura spread out. "Where is Sui? Get out here!" Draconis's eyes were crimson red. His anger and killing intent condensed in the air. His vigorous voice shook the ripples in front of him. "Draconis, you should answer a few of our questions before you ask Sui." A trace of anger flashed through the Holy Venerate's eyes as his sixth-level origin domain cultivation suddenly erupted. Duanmu Xiaomon's beautiful silhouette was instantly enveloped by the golden light of the Holy Monarch Qi, following which the space around her started to distort. Similarly, Duanmu Xiaoman turned around. Her beautiful silhouette was covered in ice and snow. With a flick of his sleeve, the strength of a half-step heavenly wish erupted, and the fine ice crystals around him turned into lightning bolts that formed a circle of light. Draconis's gaze immediately turned to the sea. In this chaotic space, pressure had a certain restrictive effect on one's cultivation, but one was a sixth-level origin domain cultivator and a half-step heavenly wish. Immediately, a trace of vigilance and surprise flashed across Draconis's calm face, and a deep chill ran down his spine. "Half-step heavenly wish," Draconis said softly. At the same time, the Holy Venerate's face changed slightly as he felt an incomparably terrifying aura condensing. His deep and calm eyes flashed with shock. "She's actually a half-step heavenly wish," the Holy Venerate muttered. After decades of bitter cultivation, he had seen a half-step heavenly wish with his own eyes. Every level above the origin domain realm was harder than the previous. The Holy Venerate had been stuck at the sixth level of the origin domain realm for nearly a decade. But now, someone had actually reached the half-step heavenly wish realm, and was not far from the legendary heavenly wish realm. Once one reached the heavenly wish realm, one would be able to shatter the void, travel through space, and come and go freely, becoming the true overlord of heaven and earth. "Draconis, answer my questions or die." Duanmu Xiaomon's eyes were calm, and there were no fluctuations in her emotions. Draconis hid the shock in his heart, and his golden eyes turned to look at the tornado in the sky. The strong wind blew his black hair, and he frowned without saying a word. "Where is my brother, Duanmu Qingtian?" After being stunned for a moment, Draconis suddenly burst into laughter. In a north wind, his laughter was wild and evil. "Duanmu Qingtian? I should be the one asking you that. You've been chasing him for decades, and you still haven't found him. Is he dead? How dare you?" Duanmu Xiaoman shouted. Immediately, a cold light flashed across her eyes, and a terrifying ice crystal shot out like a bolt of lightning. The Holy Venerate instinctively dodged to the side. Bang! The small mountain behind him was directly shattered into pieces, and the huge rocks on the ground were blasted away like cannonballs. The sudden terrifying power made the corner of Draconis's eyes twitch. Looking at the calm Duanmu Xiaoman, Draconis was even more furious. "Do you think you're the only one who is at the half-step Yuan Tian realm?" Whoosh! In the air, an even more ancient aura rushed out. Draconis was surrounded by mysterious runes, and the aura of the golden dragon was magnificent. An indescribable destructive aura spread out, and it had already reached an extremely terrifying level. Draconis was also at the half-step Yuan Tian realm. The Holy Venerate was shocked. 2 half-step Yuan Tian realm cultivators at the same time. How shocking was that? The light spread out, and the invisible shock made people's eyes burn with excitement. The reason why Duanmu Qingtian could reach Yuan Tian realm must be because of the heavenly suppressing golden stone. Get lost. I will not argue with you today, and the Holy Venerate, do not try to go against the Long family. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 golden lights shot out from Draconis's eyes like searchlights, and the golden lights turned into phantoms and rushed towards the tornado. "Chi!" Duanmu Xiaoman immediately made her move. The space trembled, and a thick layer of ice crystals spread out. Under the dazzling blue light, Draconis's path was completely blocked. "Duanmu Xiaoman, Do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? Slowly turning around, Long Xiang, who was standing in the air, shot out a murderous aura from his eyes. Vast murderous intent surged like an awakened ferocious beast. Draconis go against the Long family? Shouldn't the Holy Venerate's life be repaid? The Holy Venerate sneered coldly. Are you the one who set up the space restriction in the barbarian demon forest? With a stomp of the void, the two figures flew into the sky at the same time. In their bloodshot eyes, the anger that the Holy Venerate had been suppressing for many years surged out. The Holy Venerate's shadow covered the sky, and the monstrous pressure instantly collapsed. The tornado behind them gradually disappeared, and the heaven and earth energy slowly stopped. Draconis' eyes flashed with a hint of anxiety. So the two of you are here to collect the debt. Since you both want to die, then you can go and accompany Duanmu Qingtian. Boom! His body suddenly tilted slightly, and the golden dragon claw suddenly swept out. The sky was filled with palm prints that seemed to be able to shatter the void. One palm print after another landed on Duanmu Xiaoman and the Holy Venerate. Chapter 1933. The space was constantly distorted, and the whole sky seemed to be trembling. In a trance, a shocking aura spread out, and Su Yi felt that he had been floating for a long time. In the endless void, Su Yi's body exuded a vast, ancient aura. Su Yi, who was in the center of the tornado, was surrounded by the ancient and vicissitudes of life from the domain pearl in front of him. Like a fallen leaf spinning in the void storm, Su Yi's mind seemed to be suppressed by a huge rock, and he couldn't wake up. Subconsciously, he felt that he was undergoing a strong spatial transformation, and the golden dragon aura was emitting an extremely terrifying energy in the endless vortex. A tearing feeling injected a strong pain into Su Yi's soul, and his skin and blood vessels burst open in an instant. Ugh! A faint, painful groan came from his throat, and Su Yi's hands drooped down weakly, but the domain pearl was still rotating in front of his chest. The ancient and rich light lifted Su Yi's body, and he gradually floated higher and higher. As far as the eye could see, above the vast void, the void was chaotic, and the endless energy storm spread out terrifyingly. Boom! Only to hear a loud noise around Draconis. Duanmu Xiaoman and the Lord burst out an extremely terrifying aura at the same time towards Draconis. In the misty sky, one side was a tornado, and the other side was a battle between two powerhouses. The golden dragon let out a long roar, and the golden light that filled the sky landed on the huge rocks. Countless golden rocks rushed over. Bang, bang. Feeling Draconis' true strength, Duanmu Xiaoman didn't dare to be careless. After leaving the palace, this was the second half-step Yuan Tian powerhouse after the blood dragon. She glanced at the tornado in the sky, and cold streaks of light shot into the sky like arrows, emitting the roars of ice dragons. This time, I'm going to fight alone. Duanmu Xiaoman retreated and looked away. When he raised his eyes again, they were filled with extreme determination and fury. Draconis' attacks did not slow down. His eyes trembled and emitted a chilling aura. Facing the 10 jade pavilion that was about to disappear, Draconis was also burning with anxiety. Duanmu, what exactly do you want? Duanmu Xiaoman's origin qi surged like a flood. Immediately, the ice qi in her hands intensified. Her beautiful face was cold and filled with frost. Tell me where the Duanmu Qingtian is. Draconis was immediately enraged, and he unleashed a barrage of golden dragon palms. Countless spatial cracks appeared in the surrounding space, and a terrifying light emerged from the pitch-black light. Strong winds billowed, and his aura surged. Do you want to know the whereabouts of the Duanmu Qingtian? His tracks are within the tornado. Draconis waved his hand, and with a terrifying force, he pierced through the void and sent a palm strike towards the heavenly venerate. Roar! Instantly, The ice in Duanmu, Xiaoman's hand, started to spin, and when the two attacks collided, the terrifying energy ripples immediately spread out in all directions. Under the powerful energy, the heavenly venerate's Saint King Qi immediately cracked. Even though he was standing close to the battle between two half-step Yuan Tian realm cultivators, he could still feel the immense pressure in his heart. Duanmu Xiaoman quickly formed a series of hand seals and pulled the heavenly venerate back. Her face was pale, and her footsteps were staggering. The two of them could only watch Draconis turn into a golden dragon shadow and rush towards the tornado in the sky. "Oh no, Su Yi is still inside," the heavenly venerate shouted. Duanmu Xiaoman pressed the heavenly venerate's shoulder, and her eyes lit up. Her body instantly turned into an ice-blue phantom and chased after Draconis. "You go out first. The space is about to change again. If you don't go out, there will be problems." As soon as she finished speaking, Duanmu Xiaoman chased after Draconis at an unbelievable speed. The heavenly venerate's red lips were tightly pursed, and his fists were clenched tightly. It was undeniable that a half-step Yuan Tian realm cultivator like him couldn't be compared to a 6th-stage Yuan domain cultivator. If he stayed here, not only would he not be able to avenge the heavenly venerate, he wouldn't be able to help Duanmu Xiaoman either. In the chaotic space, the sky was filled with flames and mist, and a destructive aura filled the void. Once again, the entire space started to reject the heavenly venerate. The heavenly venerate's eyes twitched, and his face was filled with coldness. He looked in front of him with hatred and retreated rapidly, rushing towards the entrance he came from. On the demon subduing square, there were groups of 2 or 3 people gathered there, and pairs of anxious eyes were constantly looking for the person who came out of the 10 Jade Pavilion. The demon subduing square had been cleaned up by the demon subduing sect. Lu Ruashi and the others from the Bawang sect were anxiously waiting on the steps as the biting cold wind blew past. "Someone is coming out," Suruga said in a low voice as he squinted his eyes. "It's the heavenly venerate." Immediately, the people from the Holy Mountain and Lu Ruashi gathered around. Yin Mietian and the others stepped forward at the same time. The Holy Flame Elder looked a little haggard, and there were traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. His hands were trembling as he spoke. "Heavenly Venerate, what happened inside?" PFFF. The Heavenly Venerate spat out another mouthful of blood and hurriedly sealed his meridians. He came behind the Heavenly Venerate and pushed him with both hands. "It's just a burst of Yuan Qi. He just needs to rest and recuperate," He muttered. The Heavenly Venerate turned around and smiled at Yi. His gaze fell on Xiahong House and Lu Ruashi. Both of them were looking at Su Yi anxiously, as if they were asking about the situation inside. "Let's go back," the Heavenly Venerate sighed. Everyone was shocked, including Suruga and the people from the aristocratic families. They were all asking about the situation inside. "Have you found Su Yi?" The Heavenly Venerate shook his head and told everyone that Duanmu Xiaoman and Draconis were still looking for Su Yi. Lu Ruashi was very anxious, and her tender body was trembling slightly. The Heavenly Venerate sighed heavily. Even Duanmu Xiaoman could not have escaped from the center of the chaotic storm. The Heavenly Venerate did not say this. "Let's go back first. Whether he lives or dies, it's destiny." The Heavenly Venerate repeated again. Lu Ruashi shook her head violently. She could not believe the situation in front of her. The Heavenly Venerate's voice was low again. "Let's go back." Merciless West, Wuchang Fairy, the Green Emperor, and the Yin Yang Ming brothers looked solemn. They thought for a while and made way for them. "Ruashi, you should go back first. He will be fine. Wait for him at the sacred mountain," Wuchang Fairy said softly. Sadness and sadness filled Lu Ruashi's eyes. She looked as if she had lost her soul. She gritted her teeth and said, "Okay, I'll wait for him at the sacred mountain." Not only the Holy Fire Elder, but also the Heavenly Venerate and Xiahong House were slightly shocked. Lu Ruashi seemed to have changed a lot after the Tianfeng ranking battle. Draconis and Duanmu Xiaoman are still inside. You can ask them if you have any questions. The Heavenly Venerate looked at the 4 aristocratic families. His anger was spreading to his neck. After that, the Lord looked at the Xiahong house thoughtfully. His hidden hatred was appropriately concealed, and he left with Lu Ruoshi and the others. In the 10 Jade restaurant, the storm had stopped. When Draconis and Duanmu Xiaoman arrived, the storm had disappeared. In the space, a strong repulsive force began to push everything away. The aura that spread out made people feel extremely cold. Chapter 1934. Bastard. The void suddenly began to tremble, and with the place where the tornado disappeared as the center, a dazzling light suddenly burst out, and the entire void began to release a powerful and terrifying force. Draconis' half-step Yuan Sky cultivation base was completely released, and the majestic energy rushed into the void, and his body was still swaying in the void. Sui, Duanmu Xiaoman, stood proudly in the wind and looked at the pressure released by Draconis, and her heart was even more certain. There was still a huge secret hidden in the 10 Jade Pavilion. It was very likely that Duanmu Qingtian was inside. Previously, Sui showed her the Realm Pearl, so even if Duanmu Xiaoman wasn't sure, she could only take a gamble. Turning around, Draconis looked at Duanmu Xiaoman's calm appearance, and a few doubts flashed in his eyes. Wrapped in the aura of the golden dragon that was constantly rotating around him, and surrounded by rolling golden light, Draconis turned around and laughed wildly. Duanmu Xiaoman, it seems like you have a card up your sleeve when it comes to Sui. You're not worried about your lover at all. I don't understand what you mean. For no reason, Duanmu Xiaoman coldly stared at him, and vaguely, she could feel an extremely powerful pressure. Draconis' anger was immediately restrained, but the huge pressure was still very frightening. The aristocratic families have always let the imperial palace do whatever they want, but I didn't expect that you and your sister would have a half-step Yuan Sky cultivation base. It seems that my long family has been negligent. Duanmu Xiaoman did not look sideways as she coldly shouted. A shadow condensed behind her as she spoke. What? You want to destroy the imperial palace? That's right, you destroyed the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion and Tian Yao School. There's nothing you can't do. Draconis raised the corner of his mouth and coldly said, and his eyes were like a tiger's, "The strong are revered. You should know this principle, right? Today, it's not a good idea for me to fight with you. Everything will be clear when Sui comes out. I will naturally go and take a look at the imperial palace." Before he finished speaking, a loud and clear dragon roar resounded from the golden dragon's shadow behind Long Ao. The huge row of dragon scales trembled slightly with rolling golden light. Immediately, a powerful force shot into the void along with the golden light. Chi! The shadow swayed, and under the huge golden light of the golden dragon shadow, the dark space crack was directly pulled open as if it was devouring souls. Before Duanmu Xiaoman could move, Draconis had already disappeared into the crack. The void swayed, and the red and golden light reflected on the horizon could no longer be distinguished from the clouds. Everything was in the midst of chaos. Duanmu Xiaoman finally couldn't bear it any longer, and her feet started to sway. As expected, he can't hold on anymore. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were covered with a layer of mist, and her red lips trembled. "You promised me that you would come back." The ice lawn shadow behind her trembled, and in the dark and terrifying space, there were continuous fluctuations. The storm had completely disappeared, and Sui also seemed to have disappeared with the storm. The air pressure in the surroundings gradually increased, and the space was torn apart one after another by the tremendous pressure. Ku! The same loud and clear cry of the ice lawn resounded in the void, and the bone-chilling cold energy dissipated. Duanmu Xiaoman moved her feet lightly, and the ice lawn shadow behind her trembled and instantly disappeared from the 10 Jade building. After a long while, the 10 Jade building's shadow had completely disappeared. Disappeared? The 10 Jade building is gone. Merciless West shouted, and coldness shot out from his deep black eyes. Duanmu Xiaoman was his only hope, and if Duanmu Xiaoman didn't come out, Su, he would be in danger. The heaven and earth aura dissipated, as if the 10J building had never existed. Everyone was shocked, and the cold eyes of the 5 aristocratic families trembled. The people of the Heavenly Palace and the demon-subduing sect stood together, and Qi Jiuzhen, Qi Dongjue, and Qi Xingbao stood at the top of the battle stage, and their eyes were constantly changing. There were still some corners of the forest filled with the disciples of the demon-subduing sect, and the terrifying aura lingered in the sky until the 10J building disappeared. Thousands of beasts roared, and hundreds of rivers shook. Spiritual birds rushed to the sky in an instant, as if they had finally broken free from their shackles. In the dense Great Demon Mountain Range, countless demonic beasts roared. All the strange phenomena indicated that the most terrifying scene had already come to an end. Sect Master is still inside. What should we do? Qi Jiuzhen's eyes were filled with shock, and a sense of fear rose in his heart. On the battle stage, Qi Dongjue and Qi Xingbao's faces were even uglier, and they also didn't want anything to happen to Su Yi. Even if he wasn't the sect master of the demon-subduing sect, the poison in their bodies had to be removed. Thinking that Su Yi might not be able to come out, their faces turned black. The disciples of the demon-subduing sect looked at each other. What happened in Heavenly Wind was simply unbelievable. In less than 7 days, the 10 Jade building disappeared, and their shock was indescribable. It ended just like that? Yin Mietian still couldn't believe it. The 10J building that had occupied the 10J building for tens of thousands of years, and every time it appeared, it would last for a year. How could it disappear so quickly? I'm afraid that the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament won't be held in the future. Dugu Cheng's eyes were filled with frost. Yun Zhongli stood at the front with his eyes closed, and a gust of wind erupted from his body, making him look like an immortal in the clouds. The 10 Jade building will no longer exist in this world. Yi and Yin Mietian looked at the empty sky at the same time, and a shrill cry reverberated through the world. In the next instant, an icy blue crack appeared in the sky, bringing with it a huge chill. Duanmu Xiaoman descended onto the square. Palace Lord, Guyue was extremely excited. The words of the aristocratic families were like a huge rock that smashed into everyone's hearts, causing them to feel extremely uncomfortable. Everyone gathered around her again. The Bawang sect, demon-subduing sect, and Heavenly Command Palace asked in unison, "Palace Lord, where's Su Yi?" Duanmu Xiaoman retracted her aura, and a trace of sadness flashed through her eyes. Looking at the burning gazes of Merciless West and the others, Duanmu Xiaoman didn't reveal a trace of emotion and remained calm. Su Yi is in a safe place. You all don't need to worry. Who? Merciless West and Elder nodded heavily. And then Duanmu Xiaoman looked at the 4 aristocratic families. Palace Lord Duanmu, where's the dragon god? He asked. He's gone. Gone. The 4 looked at each other with puzzled expressions. According to Draconis' temperament, he wouldn't give up until he got what he wanted. Why would he leave in advance? Yi pursed her lips, and a trace of slyness flashed in her eyes. Her robe fluttered slightly behind her. In that case, I'll return to Tianlan City too. She turned around and looked at Yin Mietian and Dugu Cheng again, and said, I'll take my leave first. Yin Mietian didn't understand, but he knew there must be some secret, so he disappeared on the spot with Dugu Cheng. In an instant, the 3 aristocratic families had disappeared. Yin Zhongli smiled faintly. Safe place? He glanced at Duanmu Xiaoman, and there was a hidden light in the depths of his eyes. Yin Zhongli's robust figure echoed in the air. Demon-subduing sect, listen to me. Keep an eye on Su Yi when he comes out. No one is allowed to touch a single strand of his hair. 3 months later, I want to see Su Yi personally at the ancient Cloud Immortal sect. Chapter 1935. Suddenly, Yin Zhongli also disappeared from the great demon mountain range. Tens of thousands of beasts crawled on the ground as unparalleled demonic qi spread out from the forest. The trembling pressure seemed to cover everyone's heart with a layer of fog. Yin Zhongli's departure also meant that the 5 aristocratic families had completely withdrawn from the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. Their eyes trembled. Only the members of Heavenly Palace, Bawang's sect, and Demon Subduing sect were left in the Demon Subduing Square. Lord Consecrator, what about Master? Merciless West crossed her arms and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman coldly. Merciless West said, Palace Lord Duanmu, what are your plans? Are you going to wait for Su Yi here? Duanmu Xiaoman took a deep breath and tried her best to maintain the trembling in her eyes as she glanced at Qi Dongjue. Qi Dongjue. Duanmu Xiaoman's voice was soft and cold, but her eyes were like lightning. Qi Dongjue, who was dressed in a red robe, thought that he had heard wrongly. He looked around and was delighted when he confirmed that she was calling him. Whoosh! He turned into a stream of light and rushed to the direction of Heavenly Palace. His eyes were blazing with madness and his hands were trembling. He bent down and said to Duanmu Xiaoman, Palace Lord Duanmu, what are your orders? Duanmu Xiaoman's faintly discernible moon robe raised a trace of coldness, revealing her beautiful white skin. You know what I want to say? When Su Yi comes out, immediately report to Heavenly Palace. Qi Dongjue was startled at first. He cupped his fists and the light in his eyes dimmed. He sighed and nodded heavily. Gue, Long Pasan, Luo Wuya, and the other elders all said, Palace Lord, are we really not going to wait? Duanmu Xiaoman turned around towards the great demon mountain range that was brimming with demonic qi and said faintly, No, something big is about to happen in Heavenly Palace. Has Jun Haoyan been sent back? Gue nodded and told Duanmu Xiaoman that Jun Haoyan had already been sent back to the Heavenly Palace by Nie Shuangjue. Just now, when Duanmu Xiaoman came out of the Tenjie building, Guiyue's heart was in a mess. He kept feeling that something was going to happen. Now that Duanmu Xiaoman had said it, he felt more at ease. The eyes of the several vassal elders were filled with unswerving determination. Similarly, they didn't show the slightest bit of fear. Let's go. After saying that, Duanmu Xiaoman glanced at the Bawang sect, Merciless West, and the others and smiled faintly. The Green Emperor and the Yin Yang twins were shocked. Boom! In the next second, Duanmu Xiaoman led everyone from Imperial Celestial Palace to tear the space apart. The huge icy blue space crack left a long string of icy blue crystals in the air. Lord Consecrator, Sect Lord shouldn't be coming out for a while. Why don't you go back and rest first? I'll inform you immediately if there's any news, Scarlet Astral Leopard said to the Bawang sect. After saying that, he saw Merciless West and the others looking at Suruga in the corner. Their faces were solemn, and sword chi surged around them. They looked at the great demon mountain range without saying a word. Elder Su, what do you think? After a while, Suruga sighed. Duanmu Xiaoman and Draconis couldn't find a way. Everything could only wait for Su Yi to come out. I'll go back to Shunjin Gate first. Wuqing, don't worry. Su Yi's health is good. He will definitely come back safely. We have to believe in him. Suruga must have heard about Su Yi's idea from Mu Yao. Mu Yao's bloodline was equally amazing. This time, the Long family didn't get any definite benefits from Su Yi. Their only genius had ended up in such a terrible state. Naturally, they wouldn't be satisfied. After Suruga left, Merciless West and the others returned to the secret cultivation room. They couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. Su Yi had completely formed a grudge with the Divine Tiger sect this time. Even the young palace lord of the Long family was directly crippled. This kind of hatred, as long as Su Yi came out, would definitely spread to the entire Bawang sect and even the Demon Subduing sect. Green Emperor, Yin Ming, Yang Ming, quickly returned to the Bawang sect. Tell Ming Yue and the others to quickly build a defensive line. Once Su Yi comes out, we'll come back. After receiving the order, Green Emperor and the others rushed back with a serious expression. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. This brat probably formed a grudge with the Sky Barbarian continent. I don't think so. This brat isn't brainless. Can't you see that his Tian Feng ranking tournament this time was targeted? Shi Wuqing said in a low voice as he raised his gaze. His reddened eyes glowed. Xiaohan continued speaking. I'm guessing that this brat must have discovered something. Furthermore, he must have made some kind of agreement with Palace Lord Duanmu. Otherwise, why would Palace Lord Duanmu give up so easily? Draconis's behavior is even stranger. His son is already crippled. Is revenge more important than his son? He didn't find Su Yi, nor did he see any new movements from the Long family. Merciless West pondered for a long time. She stroked her chin, her eyes filled with shock. From Duanmu Xiaoman and Suruga's behavior, although they were anxious, they didn't rush in like they did in the second round. All of this is related to this brat's discovery. Furthermore, it's very likely that the aristocratic families came because of this discovery. Wu Chang Fairy nodded and said softly, Fortunately, we still have some time to relax. When this brat comes out, we'll quickly discuss it. However, I'm a little puzzled. How did the Yun family and this brat form a grudge? Shaking her head, Merciless West spat out a mouthful of air. She leaned her head towards the sky. After being tense for so long, she could finally have a good rest. Forget it. Let's wait here. This brat really can't rest for a moment. This old man hasn't been as magnificent as him in my entire life. After a long time, when the domain pearl in front of Su Yi's chest finally dissipated its light, Su Yi's body also became bright and clear. Floating in a Milky Way where the stars revolved in reverse, the surroundings were incomparably dark. In a daze, Su Yi could feel that he had already traversed a very long distance. Chila, under the cover of the vast and boundless aura, Su Yi finally passed through the last light tunnel. Entering a dry and scorching environment, red sand and stones rolled all around. 3 suns hung high in the sky. The scorching aura spread throughout the void. The entire space was scorched into pieces of spatial cracks. There was not a trace of water in the cracked earth. White steam constantly rose from the deep cracks. The scorching sun shone on the entire world, making it lifeless. After Su Yi fell from the sky, he directly collapsed on a piece of gravel and lost consciousness. Ripples gradually rose in the air, and the surrounding scene became abnormally blurry in the scorching heat. Spontaneously, the aura of the Emperor Sparrow and the Golden Dragon began to protect Su Yi's heart meridians. The sacred aura erupted, and the crimson light surrounded Su Yi in the center. Faint traces of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth. His charming face was pale. Su Yi still did not wake up. In a desolate desert environment, Su Yi lay for half a day. The shadows of the Golden Dragon and the Emperor Sparrow alternated. On top of a hidden mountain rock in the distance, a white figure was hidden in the air. He had an arrogant temperament. The faint silver strands between his temples revealed that he was slightly older. At the same time, his face was pale and his eyes were sunken. He revealed a slightly sickly state. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.